Control of what I say and control of what I do. And this time I'm gonna do it my way. I hope you enjoy this as much as I do. Are we ready? I am, 'cause it's all about control, and I've got lots of it.
Like winter freezes just like ice. And there's a cold, lonely night that shines from you. You're wind up like the wreck you hide behind that mask you use. And did you think this one could never win? Well, look at me, I'm coming back again. I got a taste of love in a simple way. And if you need to know while I'm still standing, you just fade away. Don't you know I'm still standing? I never could have hoped to win. You're starting down the road, leaving me again. The threats you made were meant to cut me down. And if my love was just a circus, you'd be a clown by now. Don't you know I'm still standing better than I ever did? Looking like a true survivor, feeling like a little kid. I'm still standing after all this time, picking up the pieces of my life without you on my mind. I'm still standing, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm still standing, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Welcome to my stream, everybody. Well, we bitch about coworkers and talk dirty about people we don't know, and sometimes people and sometimes about people we do know. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, hello and welcome everybody. Welcome in. I'm gonna start up the spirit stuff. I want it to be cozy, not overwhelming. Yes, you read right. Today is Wednesday, so of course it is story time. Is Sunday. So I hope all of you are ready and getting all cozied up for the hours to come. Finally got a Wednesday where I felt like something, so I was like, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm sorry I'm running a little bit late. Had to get a few things done around the house before I sat down for the day. And sadly, it's already looking like it's going to storm, so hopefully it'll hold off till after um, I stream tonight. As for what's going to come up next with the reading, what's going to come up next? It might be I might just read the whole time. I don't know. Well, we're just going to see what happens. I'm kind of like, why not? All right. Let me clear my throat. And let me clear my throat. Sorry. But I actually feel good about myself and feel good in general. You get the complete and total unhinged version. But anyway, welcome in, friends, neighbors, and frenemies. This is Storytime with Cyn. I am reading Summer Knight from the Wizard by Trade Omnibus by Jim Butcher. This is part 5. And as I always let folks know, all sound alerts are locked down for this portion of the stream. Please refrain from any follows or resubs or anything of that nature. And do not waste your money on points or anything like that, so we can keep the stream nice and peaceful for everyone intended. So make sure you've got your blanket, your warm beverage of choice, or if you're living in a more warm climate this time of year, such as myself, because it's starting to warm up here, or even in the south where it's very warm now, I'm sure, sit in front of the air conditioner and still bundle up and still enjoy the stream. And so with that, we will begin at the beginning. And we will start. Chapter 23. I took the beetle a ways north of town, keeping to the lake shore. Rain sheeted down and lightning made the clouds dance with shadow and flame. Maybe 10 miles from the center of town, the downpour eased up and the air became noticeably colder, enough so that in jeans and a tee I was shivering. I pulled the car off Sheridan Road a couple miles Northwestern University out toward Winnetka, set the parking brake and locked it up and trudged toward the shore of the lake. It was a dark night, and I called no lights to guide me, and I didn't carry a flashlight. It took my eyes a while. But I finally managed to start making out shapes in the darkness and found my way through the light woods around this part of the lake shore to a long, naked promontory of rock thrusting itself a dozen yards into the water. I walked to the end of the stone, stood there for a moment, listening to the thunder rolling of the lake, the wind stirring the water into waves, nearly like those of the sea. The air itself felt restless, charged with violence, and light rain that still felt was uncomfortably cold. I closed my eyes, pulling together energy from the elements around me, where water met stone, air met water, stone met air, and drawing it, as well for my own determination. The power coursed into me, dancing and seething with a quivering life of its own. I focused it with my thoughts, shaped it, and then opened my eyes and lifted my arms. Wrists out so that the old pale round scars on either side of the big blue veins there felt the rain falling on them. I pushed out the power I'd gathered and called into the thunder and rain, "Godmother, Vente, Lianashi." A sudden presence appeared beside me, and a woman's voice said, "Honestly, child, it isn't as though I am far away. There's no reason to shout." I jerked in surprise and nearly fell into the lake. I turned to my left to face my fairy godmother, who stood calmly upon the surface of the water, bobbing up and down a bit as waves passed under her feet. Leah stood nearly my own height, but instead of dark contrasts and harsh angles, she was a creature of gliding curves and gentle shades. Hair the color of flame coursed in curls and ringlets to below her hips, and tonight she wore it with a gown of flowing emerald silk, laced through with veins of ochre and aquamarine, a belt made from a twisted braid of silken threads of gold wound round her waist, and a dark-handled knife rested on slant at her hip, through a loop in the belt. She was one of the high she, and her beauty went without saying. The perfection of her form was complemented by features of feminine loveliness, a full mouth, skin like cream, and oblong feline eyes of gold, cat-slitted like those of most fae. She took in my surprise with a certain reserved mirth, her mouth set with a tiny smile. Good evening, godmother, I said, trying for a proper degree of politeness. You look lovely as the stars tonight. She let out a pleased sigh. Oh, such a flatterer. I'm already enjoying this conversation so much more than the last. I'm not dying this time, I said. The smile faded. That is a matter of opinion, she responded. You are in great danger, child. Thinking about it, I realized I generally have been whenever you're around. She chuckled. She clucked repeatedly. Nonsense. I have never had anything but your best interests at heart. I barked out a harsh laugh. My best interest, that's rich. Leah arched a brow. What reason have you to think otherwise? Well, for starters, because you tricked me out of a big evil slaying magic sword and sold me to Mob. Shh, Leah said. The sword was just business, child, and as for selling your debt to Mob, I had no choice in the matter. Yeah, right. She arched her brows. You should know better, dear. Oh, child. You know I cannot speak what is untrue. During our last encounter, I returned to Fair with great power and upset vital balances. Those balances had to be redressed, and your debt was the mechanism that the Queen chose to employ. I frowned at her for a minute, returned with great power. My eyes fell to the knife at her waist. That thing the vampires gave you? She rested her fingers lightly on the knife's hilt. Don't cheapen it. This athame was no creation of theirs, and it was less a gift than a trade. Amaratius and that thing are in the same league. Is that what you're saying? My fairy godmother was dangerous enough without a big-time artifact of magic. What is it? Not what, but whose, Leah corrected me. And in any case, you may be assured that surrendering my claim on you to Mom was in no way in an attempt to do you harm. I have never meant you lasting ill. I scowled at her. You tried to turn me into one of your hounds and keep me in a kennel, godmother. You would have been perfectly safe there, she pointed out, and very happy. I only wanted what was best for you because I care for you, child. My stomach did a neat little roll when I swallowed. Yeah, that's very you, I guess, in a demented, insane way. I can understand that. Leah smiled. I knew you would. To business, then. Why have you called me this night? I took a deep breath and braced myself a little. Look, we haven't gotten along really well lately, or ever, and I don't have a lot to trade with, but I had hoped you'd be willing to work out a bargain with me. She arched a red gold brow. To what ends? I need to speak to them, I said, to Mom and Titania. Her expression grew distant, pensive. You must understand that I cannot protect you from them should they strike at you. My power has grown, Papa, but not to those heights. I understand, but if I don't get to the bottom of this and find the killer, I'm as good as dead. So I've heard, my godmother said. She lifted her right hand, extended to me. Then give me your hand. I need my hand, godmother, both of them. She let out a peal of laughter. No, silly child, simply put your hand in mine. I will convey you. I gave her a sidelong look and asked wearily, at what price? None. None? You never do anything without a price. She rolled her eyes and clarified, none to you, child. Who then? No one you know or knew, Leah said. An intuition hit me. My mother, that's who you're talking about. Leah left her hand extended. She smiled, but only said, perhaps. I regarded her hand quietly for a moment and then said, I'm not sure I can believe that you're really going to protect me, but I already have. I folded my arms. When? If you remember that night in the boneyard, I healed a wound to your head that may have well killed you. You only did it to sucker me into getting to the sword. Leah's tone became wounded. Not only for that, and if you consider further, I also freed you of a crippling binding and rescued you from a blazing inferno not 24 hours later. You charged my girlfriend all her memories of me to do it, and you only saved me from the fire so that you could put me in the doghouse. That does not change the fact that I was, after all, protecting you. I stared at her in frustration for a minute and then scowled. What have you done for me lately? Leah closed her eyes for a moment, then opened her mouth and spoke. Her voice came out aged and querulous. What's all that racket? I've already called the police, I have. You fruits get out of our hall or they'll lock you away. I blinked. Ruel's apartment? That was you? Obviously, child, and at the market earlier this eve. She lifted her hand in the air, made an intricate motion with long, pale fingers, and opened her mouth again as if singing a note of music. Instead, the sound of police sirens emerged, somewhat muted and indistinguishable from the real thing. I shook my head. I don't get it. She moved her fingers again and starts blended into another silver sweet laugh, her expression amused, almost fond. I'm sure you do not, Puppet. She offered her hand again. Come, time is pressing. She had that part right, at least, and I knew she was telling me the truth. Her words had left her little room for evasion. I never got anything but burn when making deals with the fairies, and if Leah was offering to help me for free, there had to be a catch somewhere. Leah's expression told me that she either knew what I had been thinking or knew me well enough to guess, and she laughed again. Harry, she said, if it is of any consequence to you, remember that our bargain is still in effect. I am bound to do you no harm for several weeks more. I'd forgotten about that. Of course, I couldn't fully trust that either. Even if she had sworn to do me no harm, if I asked her to take me somewhere, she could drop me off in a forest full of unseelie nasties without breaking her word. She had done something very similar to me last year. Thunder rumbled again. The light flared even more brightly in the clouds. Tick, tick, tick. The clock was running, and I wasn't going to get anything done standing here waffling. Either I trusted myself to my godmother, or I went back home and waited for something to come along and squash me. Going with Leah wasn't the best way to get what I wanted. It was just the only way. I took a breath and took her hand. Her skin felt like cool silk untouched by the rain. All right. After them, I need to see the mothers. Leah gave me an oblique glance and said, survive the flood before hurling yourself into the fire, child. Close your eyes. Why? Annoyance flickered over her eyebrows. Child, stop wasting time with questions. You have given me your hand. Close your eyes. I muttered a curse to myself and did it. My godmother spoke something, a string of liquid syllables in a tongue I could not understand, but it made my knees turn rubbery and my fingers suddenly feel weak. A wave of disorientation, dizzying but not unpleasantly so, scrambled my sense of direction. I felt a breeze on my face, a sense of movement, but I couldn't have said whether I was falling or rising or moving forward. The movement stopped and the whirling sensations passed. Thunder rumbled again, very loudly, and the surface I stood on shook with it, light played against my closed eyelids. We are here, Leah said, her voice hushed. I opened my eyes. I stood on a solid surface among gray and drifting mist. The mist covered whatever ground I was on, and though I poked at it with my foot, I couldn't tell if it was earth, wood, or concrete. The landscape around me rolled in hills and shallow valleys, all of it covered in ground fog. I frowned up at the skies. They were clear. Stars glittered impossibly bright against the velvet curtain of night, sparkling in dozens of colors. And instead the usual pale silver, jewels against the blackness of the void. Thunder rumbled again, and the ground shook beneath the mist. Lightning flashed along with it, and the ground all around us was lit with a sudden angry blue fire that slowly faded away. The truth dawned on me slowly. I pushed my foot in the ground again, and then in a circle around me, I choked. We're on the clouds, my godmother said, nodding. Or so it would seem to you. We are no longer in the mortal world. The never, never then, fairy? She shook her head and spoke, her voice still hushed, almost reverent. No, this is the world between, the sometimes place where Chicago and Fairy meet, overlap, Chicago over Chicago, if you will. This is the place the queens call forth when the she desire to spill blood. They call it forth? I asked in a quiet voice. They created? Even so, Leah said, her voice similarly low, they prepare for war. I turned slowly, taking it in. We stood on a rise of ground in a broad, shallow valley. I could make out what looked like a mist-shrouded lake shore not far away, a river cut through the cloudscape. Wait a minute, I said. This is familiar. Chicago over Chicago, she had said. I started adding in mental images of buildings, streets, lights, cars, people. This is Chicago. The land. A model of it, Leah agreed, crafted from clouds and mist. I kept turning and found behind me a stone gray and ominous and enormous. Gray and ominous, and enormous, startling solid amidst all the drifting white. I took a step back from it and saw the shape of it. A table made of massive slab of rock, the legs made of more stones as thick as the pillars of Stonehenge. Writing writhed across the surface of some of the stone, runes that looked a little familiar. Norse, maybe? Some of them looked more Egyptian. They seemed to take something from several different sources, leaving them unreadable. Lightning flashed again through the ground, and a wave of blue-white light flooded over the table through the rooms, lighting them like Vegas neon for a moment. I've heard of this, I said after a moment. A long time ago, Ebenezer called it the stone table. Yes, my godmother whispered, blood is power, child. Blood spilled upon the stone forever becomes part of who holds it. Who holds it? She nodded, her green eyes luminous. For half the year the table lies with winter, for half within summer. It changes hands, I said, understanding midsummer and midwinter. Yes, summer holds the table now, but not for much longer. I stepped toward the table and extended a hand. The air round it literally shook, pressing against my fingers, making my skin ripple visibly as though against a strong wind, but I could feel nothing. I touched the surface of the table itself and could feel the power in it, buzzing through the flowing rooms like electricity through high-voltage cables. The sensation engulfed my hand with sudden heat and violence, and I jerked my fingers back. They were numb, and the nails the two had touched the table were blackened at the edges. Wisps of smoke rose from them. I shook my fingers and looked at my godmother. Let me get this straight. Blood spilled onto the table turns into power for whoever holds it. Summer now, but winter after tomorrow night. Leah inclined her head, silent. I don't understand what makes that so important. She frowned at the table and then pacing around it slowly clockwise, her eyes never leaving me. The table is not merely a repository for energy, child. It is a conduit. Blood spilled upon its surface takes more than merely life with it. Power, I said. I frowned and folded my arms, watching her. So for an instant, a wizard's blood spilled there. She smiled. Great power would become of it, mortal life, mortal magic, drawn into the hands of whichever queen ruled the table. I swallowed and took a step back. Oh. Leah completed her circuit of the table and stopped beside me. She glanced furtively around her and then looked me in the eyes and said in a voice barely audible, Child, should you survive this conflict, do not let Mom bring you here. Never. A chill crawled down my spine. Yeah, okay, I shook my head. Godmother, I still don't get why you're trying to tell me. Why is the table so important? She gestured left and right toward a pair of hilltops facing one another across the broad valley. I looked at one, squinting at a sudden blur in my vision. I tried looking at the other, and the same thing happened. I can't see. I said, it's a veil or something. You must see if you're to understand. I drew in a slow breath. Wizards can see a lot of things most people can't. It's called the sight, the third eye, a lot of other names. If a wizard uses the sight, he can see the forces of magic themselves at work. Spells like braids of neon light, spells pierce like projections on a screen. A wizard's sight shows the things as they truly are, and it's always an unsettling experience, one way or the other. What you see with the sight stays with you, good or bad. It's always just as fresh in your mind as if you'd just seen it. I'd looked on a little tree spirit being with my sight when I had been about 14, the first time I had it happen to me, and I still had a perfect picture of it in my head as though I was still looking at a little cartoonish being that was part long gnome and part squirrel. I'd seen much worse, much worse. Demons, mangled souls, tormented spirits, all of that was still there too, but I'd also seen better, one or two glimpses of beings of such beauty and purity and light that it could make me weep, but each time it got a little harder to live with, a little harder to bear, a cumulative weight. I gritted my teeth, closed my eyes, and with careful deliberation unlocked my sight. Opening my eyes again made me stagger as I was hit with a sudden rush of impressions. The cloudy landscape had absolutely seethed with magical energies. From the southern hilltop, wild green and gold light spilled, falling over the landscape like a translucent garden. Vines of green, golden flowers, flashes of other colors spread through them, clawing at the general ground and anchored here and there in points of light so vibrant and bright that I couldn't look directly at them. From the other side, cold blue and purple and greenish power spread like crystals of ice with the slow and relentless power of glaciers, pressing ahead in some places, melted back in others, especially strong around the valley's winding rivers. The conflict of energies both wound back to the hilltops themselves, to points of light as bright as small suns. I could just barely see the shadow of solid beings within those lights, and even the shadow of each was an overwhelming presence upon my senses. One was a sense of warmth, choking heat so much that I couldn't breathe, that it pressed into me and set me aflame. The other was of cold, horrible, and absolute, winding cold limbs around me, stealing away my strength. Those presences flooded through me, sudden beauty and power so terrifying, exhilarating, and awesome that I fell on my knees and sobbed. Those powers played against one another. I could sense that, though not the exact nature of their conflict. Energies wound about one another, some pressures of darkness and light, leaving the landscape vaguely lit in squares of cold and warm color. Fields of red and gold and bright green stood against empty dead blocks of blue, purple, and pale white. A pattern had formed in them, a structure to the conflict that was not wholly complete. Most of a chessboard. Only at the center at the table was the pattern broken, a solid area of Summer's power in green and gold around the stone table, while Winter's dark crystalline ice slowly pressed closer, somehow in time with an almost undetectable motion of the stars overhead. So I saw it. I got a look at what I was up against, at the naked strength of two queens of fairy, and it was bigger than me. Every ounce of strength I could have summoned would have been no more than a flickering spark beside either of those blazing fountains of light and magic. It was power that had existed since the dawn of life and would until its end. It was power that cowed mortals into abject worship and terror before, and I finally understood why. I wasn't a pawn of that kind of strength. I was an insect beside giants, a blade of grass before towering trees. And there was a dreadful attraction in seeing that power. Something in it called to the magic in me, like to light, made me want to hurl myself into those flames, into that endless icy cold. Moths look at bug zappers like I looked at the Queens of Fairy. I tore my eyes away by hiding my face in my arms. I fell to my side on the ground and curled up, trying to shut the sight, to force those images to stop flooding over me. I shook and tried to say something. I'm not sure what. It came out as stuttering, gibbering sounds. After that, I don't remember much till cold rain started slapping me on the cheek. I opened my eyes and found myself laying on the cold, wet ground on the shores of Lake Michigan, where I first called my godmother. My head was on something soft that turned out to be her lap. I sat up and away from her quickly. My head hurt, and the images of the sights it showed me made me feel particularly small and vulnerable. I sat shivering in the rain for a minute before I glanced back at my godmother. You should have warned me. Her face showed no remorse and little concern. It would have changed nothing. You needed to see. She paused and then added, I regret that it was the only way. Do you understand? The war, I said. They'll fight for control of the area around the table. If Summer holds the space, it won't matter if it's Winter's time or not. Mob won't be able to reach the table, spill blood on it, and add the power of the Summer Knight to Winter. I took a breath. There was a sense to what they were doing, as though it was a ritual, something they'd done before. Of course, Leah said, they exist in opposition. Each wields vast power, wizard. Power to rival the archangels and lesser gods, but they cancel one another flawlessly, and in the end, the board will be evenly divided. The lesser pieces will emerge and do battle to decide the balance. The ladies, I said, the knights. And, Leah added, lifting a finger, the emissaries. Like hell, I'm not fighting some kind of fucked up fairy battle in the clouds. Perhaps, perhaps not. I snorted. But you didn't help me. I need to speak to them, find out if one of them was responsible. And so you did, more truly than if you exchanged words. I frowned at her and thought through what I knew and what I'd learned on my trip to the stone table. Mob shouldn't be in any hurry. If Summer is missing her knight, Winter has the edge. If they wait, there's no need to take the table. Yes, but Summer is moving to protect the table. That means Titania thinks someone in Winter did it. But if Mob is responding instead of waiting, it means, I frowned, it means she isn't sure why Summer is moving. She's just checking Titania's advance. And that means she isn't sure who done it either. Simplistic, Leah said, but accurate enough reasoning. Poppet. Such are the thoughts of the queens of the sheep. She looked out across the lake. Your sun will rise in a little time. When once again it sets, the war will begin. In a balanced court, it would mean perhaps little of great consequence to the mortal world, but that balance is gone. If it is not restored, child, imagine what might happen. I did. I mean, I'd had an idea of what might go wrong before, but now I knew the scales of the forces involved. The powers of Winter and Summer weren't simply a bunch of electricity in a battery. They were like vast coiled springs pressing against one another. As long as that pressure was equal, the energies were held in control, but an imbalance on one side or the other could cause them to slip, and the release of energy from either side would be vast and violent, and sure to inflict horrible consequences on anything nearby, in this case Chicago, North America, and probably a good chunk of the rest of the world with it. I need to see the mothers. Get me to them. Leah rose, all grace and opaque expression impossible to read. That, too, is beyond me, child. I need to speak to the mothers. I agree, Leah said, but I cannot take you to them. The power is not mine. Perhaps Mom or Titania could, but they are otherwise occupied, committed. Great, I muttered. How do I get to them? One does not get to the mother's, child. One can only answer an invitation. She frowned faintly. I can do no more to help you. The lesser powers must take their places with the queens, and I am needed shortly. You're going? She nodded, stepped forward, and kissed my brow. It was just a kiss, a press of soft lips against my skin. Then she stepped back, one hand on the hilt of the knife of her belt. Be careful, child, and be swift. Remember, it's sundown. She paused and looked at me askance. And consider a haircut. You look like a dandelion. And with that, she stepped out into the lake. Her form melted into the water that fell back into the storm-tossed waters with a splash. Great. I muttered. I kicked a rock into the water Just great. Sundown. I know nothing, and the people I need to talk to screen all their calls. I picked up another bike, threw it as hard as I could over the lake. The sound of rain swallowed up the splash. I turned and trudged back toward the Beetle through the thunder and rain. I could see the shapes of the trees and a bit better now. Dawn must be coming on somewhere behind the clouds. I sat down behind the wheel of the trusty Beetle, put the key in, and started the car. The battered old Volkswagen wheeze once lurched without being put into gear and then started to fill with smoke. I choked and scrambled out of the car. I hit the release on the engine cover and opened it. Black smoke billowed out, and I could dimly see fire behind it, chewing up some part of the engine. I went back to the front storage compartment, got out the fire extinguisher, and put out the fire. And then I stood there in the rain, tired, aching, and staring at my burnt engine. Dawn. At midsummer, that meant I had maybe 15 hours to figure out how to get to the mothers. Somehow, I doubted their number was listed, and even if it had been, my visit to the battleground around the stone table had shown me that the queens possessed far more power than I could have believed. Their sheer presence had nearly blown the top off my head from a mile away, and the mothers were an order of magnitude above even Bob and Titania. I had 15 hours to find the killer and restore the Summer Knight's mantle to the Summer Court, and then stop a war happening in some wild nether place between here and there in the spirit world that I had no idea how to reach. And my car had died. Again. Over your head, I muttered, Harry, this is too big for you to handle alone. The council. I should contact Ebenezer, tell him what was happening. The situation was too big, too volatile, to risk screwing it up over a matter of council protocol. Maybe I'd get lucky and the council would A, believe me, and B, decide to help. Yeah, and maybe if I glued enough feathers to my arms, I'd be able to fly. Take a drink. I didn't realize I've already been reading that long. And that's the thing with these books, it just takes you away sometimes, you know? Just scanning over things, sorry. All right. Next chapter. Chapter 24. I examined my car for a few minutes more, took a couple of things off of it, walked to the nearest gas station. I called a wrecker and then got a cab back to my apartment, paying for everything with Merrill's advance. Once there, I got a Coke out of the icebox, put out fresh food and water for Mister, and changed his kitty litter. It wasn't until I had dug around under the kitchen sink, gotten out of the ball of dishwashing soap, and blown the dust off of it that I realized I was stalling. I grabbed at the phone, told myself, pride goeth before a fall, Harry. Pride can be bad. It can make you do stupid things. I took a deep breath and shotgunned the Coke. Then I picked up the phone and dialed the number Morgan had left me. It barely rang once before someone picked up and a male voice said, "Who is calling, please?" Dresden, I need to speak to Ebenezer McCoy. One moment. Sound cut off, and I figured whoever answered must have put their hand over the mouthpiece, and then there was a rustle as the phone changed hands. "You failed, then, Dresden," Morgan stated. His tone gave me a good mental picture of the smile on his smug face. "Stay where you are until the wardens arrive to escort you to the senior council for judgment." I bit down a creative expletive. "I haven't failed, Morgan, but I've turned up with some information that the senior council should have." Pride goeth, Harry, and I need help. This is getting too hot for one person to handle. I need some information and some backup if I'm going to sort this out. "It's always about you, isn't it?" Morgan said, his voice bitter. "You're the exception to every rule. You can break the laws and mock the council, and you can ignore the trials set for you because you're too important to abide by their authority." "It's got nothing to do with that," I said. "Hell's bells, Morgan. Pull your head out of your ass. The fairy's power structure has become unstable, and it looks like it might hit critical mass if something isn't done. That's bigger than me and a hell of a lot more important than council protocol." Morgan screamed at me, his voice so vicious that it made me flinch. "Who are you to judge that? You are no one, Dresden. You are nothing." He took a seething breath. "For too long I've had you flouted the council's rules. No more exceptions, no more delays, no more second chances." "Morgan," I began, "I just need to speak to Ebenezer. Let him decide if—" "No," Morgan said. "What?" "No, you won't evade justice this time, Snake. This is your trial. You will see it through without attempting to influence the senior council's judgment." "Morgan, this is insane." "No, the insanity was letting you live when you were a boy, DeMorne's murderous apprentice. And Cindy was pulling you from that burning house 2 years ago." His voice dropped to an uneven, more quiet register, an even more quiet register, the contrast to his previous tone unsettling. "Sometimes I dearly cared for what was at Archangel in Dresden, and this time someone I dearly cared for was at Archangel in Dresden, and this time your lies aren't going to get you out of what's coming to you. Then he hung up the phone. I stared at the receiver for a second before snarling with rage and slamming it down the end table over and over until the plastic broke in my hands. It hurt. I picked up the phone and threw it against the stone of the fireplace. It shattered. Its bell chiming drunkenly. I kicked at the heap mess of my living room, scattering old boxes, empty cans of Coke, books, papers, and startled cockroaches. God damn. After a few minutes of that, I was panting, and some of the blind, frustrated anger had begun to recede. Bastard, I cried. That pig-headed, bigoted, self-righteous bastard! I needed to cool off, and the shower seemed like a good place as any. I got under the cold water and tried to wash off the sweat and the fear of the past day. I half expected the water to burst into steam on contact with my skin, but instead I was able to let the anger slip away while focusing on the old shower routine: water, soap, rinse, shampoo, rinse. By the time I finished and stepped out shivering, I almost felt completely non-psychotic. I had no idea how to contact Ebenezer. If he was under warden security, and I'm sure he and the rest of the senior council were, there'd be no easy way. The best magical countermeasures in the world would create amazing, misleading results for any spell or supernatural being that tried to find him. For a moment, I debated asking Murphy for help. The council tended to overlook any method that didn't involve the use of one kind of spell or another. Murphy's contacts in the forest might be able to find them by purely old-fashioned methods. I decided against it. Even if Murphy traced the phone number down, Ebenezer might not be at it, and if I showed up there trying to get past the wardens to get to him, it would be just the excuse Morgan needed to chop my head off. I mussed up my hair with a towel and threw it on my narrow bed. Fine, I would do it without the council's help. I dressed again, putting on a pair of jeans and a white dress shirt still hanging in my closet. I rolled the sleeves up over my elbows. My sneakers were covered in muck, so I dragged my cowboy boots out of the closet and put them on. What the hell, putting on the boots maybe to do some good. I got out my big sports bag, the kind you haul hockey gear around in. It went to a blasting rod, my staff, and my sword cane, along with my backpack stocked with some candles, matches, a cup, knife, cardboard cylinder of salt, a canteen of blessed water, and various other bits of magical equipment I could use as needed. I threw in a box of old iron nails and a solid steel craftsman claw hammer with a black rubber grip, and put a couple of pieces of chalk in my pocket. Then I slid the bag over my shoulder, went to the living room, and brought the spell that would lead me to one of the very few only people who might help. Half hour later, I paid the cabbie and walked into one of the hotels surrounding O'Hare International Airport. The subtle tug of the spell led me to the hotel's restaurant, open for breakfast and half full of mostly business types. I found Elaine at a corner table. A couple of buffet plates scattered with the remains of her breakfast. Her rich brown hair had been pulled back into a tight braid coiled at the base of her neck. Her face looked pale, tired with deep circles under her eyes. She was sipping coffee and reading a paperback novel. She wore a different pair of jeans, these a lot looser, and a billowy white shirt open over a tank top. She stiffened a bit after my eyes landed on her and looked up warily. I walked to her table, pulled out the chair next to her, and sat down. Morning. She watched me, her expression opaque. Harry, how did you find me? I got to thinking that same thing last night. I said, how did you find me, that is? And I realized that you hadn't found me. You had found my car. You were inside it, nearly unconscious when I got back to it. So I looked around the car. I pulled the cap to a tire's air valve out of my pocket, showed it to her, and I found that one of these was missing. I figured you were probably the one who took it and used it to home in on the Blue Beetle. So I took one of its mates from the other tires and used it to home in on the missing one. You named your car after a superhero on the electric company? Elaine reached into a brown leather purse on the chair beside her, drew an identical valve cap. Clever. Students! How you doing? I looked at the purse. What looked like airline tickets were sticking out of it. You're running. You're a veritable wizard of the obvious, Harry. She started to shrug. Her face became ashen, her expression twisting with pain. She took a slow breath and resumed the motion with her unwounded shoulder. I feel well motivated to run. Do you really think a plane ticket will get you away from the Queens? It will get me away from Ground Zero, and that's enough. There's no way to find out who did it in time, and I don't feel like running up against another assassin. I barely got away from the first one. I shook my head real close. I said, we have to be. They took a shot at me last night, too, and I think I know who did both. She looked up at me sharply. You do? I picked up a crust of toast she discarded, mopped it through some leftover eggs, and ate it. Yeah. You probably have to catch a flight. Elaine rolled her eyes. Tell you what, you stay here and feel smug. I'll get another plate and be back when you're done. She got up rather stiffly and walked over to the buffet. She loaded her plate for eggs and bacon and sausage mixed in with some French toast and came back to the table. My mouth watered. She pushed the plate to me. Eat. I did, but between bites, I asked, "Can you tell me what happened to you?" She shook her head. Not much to tell. I spoke with Mom and with Maeve. I was on my way back to my hotel and someone jumped in the parking lot. I was able to slip most of his first strike and called up enough fire to drive him away. Then I found your car. Why did you come to me? I asked. Because I didn't know who did it, Harry, and I don't trust anyone else in this town. My throat got a little tight. I borrowed her coffee to wash down the bacon. It was Lloyd Slate. Elaine's eyes widened. The winter night? How do you know? While I was with Maeve, he came in carrying a knife in a box, and he had been burned. It was covered in dried blood. Maeve was pretty furious that it wasn't any good to her. Lines appeared between her eyebrows. Slate. He was fetching my blood for her so she could work a spell on me. She tried to cover it, but I saw her shiver. He probably tailed me out of that party. Thank the stars I used fire. I nodded. Yeah, dried out the blood, made it useless for whatever she wanted. I shoveled down some more food. Then last night I got jumped by a hired gun and a couple of fairy beasties. I gave her the summary of the attack at Walmart, leaving Murphy out of it. Maeve, Elaine said. It's about all I've got, I said. Doesn't fit her very well, but of course it fits her, Elaine said absently. Don't tell me you fell for that psychotic dilettante nymphomaniac act she puts on. I blinked and then said through a mouthful of French toast, no, of course not. She's smart, Harry. She's playing on your expectations. I chewed the next bite more slowly. It's a good theory, but that's all it is. We need to know more. Elaine frowned at me. You mean you want to talk to the mothers? I nodded. I figured they might let a few things slip about how things work, but I don't know how to get there. I thought you might be able to ask someone in Summer. She closed her paper bag. No, they won't help. No, I'm not going to see the mothers, Harry. It's insane. They're too strong. They could kill you, worse than kill you, with a stray thought. At this point, I'm already in over my head. It doesn't matter how deep the water gets from here, I grimaced. Besides, I don't really have a choice. You're wrong, she said with quiet emphasis. You don't have to stay here. You don't have to play their game. Leave. Like you aren't like I am, Elaine said. You can't stop what's being set in motion, Harry, but you can kill yourself trying. It's probably what Mom wanted to begin with. No, I can stop it. All right, I have to pause right there for the ad break. For those of you on the YouTubes, we do apologize for the momentary lapse with the reading. And why does my laptop look like it's sideways? There we go. It's probably because it's been pulled down. That's why. Okay. It looked a little off. I was like, that doesn't look right. But I was like, fresh my YouTube link. I'm gonna take a quick drink while it's no. There we go. Hope everybody's having a good Wednesday. It is a little bit of a ad break time. Just as a heads up, here is my YouTube link for anybody who'd like to subscribe. I am there as well. I also post stuff for my I stream there. I also post clips, shorts, and long form content there, like my reading streams like this one. And I wanted to thank everybody for helping out and appreciating my stream and hanging out and lurking and listening to things. Hopefully you're enjoying the reading. Sad thing is, it is getting dim as fuck. I don't know if we got a storm moving in or what, but it was bright and sunshiny when I woke up. Now, not so much. And I'm actually starting to feel it, unfortunately. But we got ad break for about 50 seconds or so. I may end up having to turn the light on. But I'm hoping I hope everybody takes this opportunity to stretch and to take get a snack or whatever in between times. And I'm figuring about an hour and 15, I will end the reading part of the stream. If not, I may go longer. Who knows? It all depends on how much more We have when I get done. Actually, no, we've got a ways to go. So yeah. We'll go the ways, but you never know. Well, welcome back from the ad break. For those of you just joining us, we are working on the book Summer Night with Jim Butcher. That is another Harry Dresden novel. And here shall we continue. She gave me a small smile. Because you're in the right, Harry, it doesn't work like that. Don't I know it, but that's not why I think so. Then why? You don't try to kill someone who isn't a threat to you. They took shots at both of us. They must think we can stop them. They, them, Elaine said. Even if we're close, we don't know who they is. That's why we talk to the mothers, I told her. They're the strongest of the queens. They know the most. If we're smart and lucky, we can get information from them. Elaine reached up to tug her braid, her expression uncertain. Harry, look. I don't want to. She closed her eyes for a moment, then said in a voice of pain, please, don't ask me to do this. You don't have to go, I said. Just find me the way to them. Just try. You don't understand the kind of trouble you're asking for, she said. I looked down my empty plate and said quietly, yeah, I do. I hated Elaine, and I'm afraid. And I must be half insane not to just dig myself a hole and pull it in after me. But I understand. I reached across the table and put my hand over hers. Her skin was soft and warm, and she shivered at the touch. Please. Her hand turned, fingers curling briefly against mine. My turn to shiver. Elaine sighed. You're an imbecile, Harry. You're such a fool. I guess some things don't change. She let out a subdued laugh before withdrawing her hand and standing. I've got a favor left to me. I'll call it in. Wait here. 5 minutes later, she was back. All right, outside. I stood. Thank you, Elaine. You going to make your plane? She opened her purse and tossed the airline tickets onto the table along with a pair of 20s. I guess not. Then she took a couple of other items out of the purse, a slave ring of ivory carved in the shape of a ring of oak leaves and attached to a silver bracelet by a silver chain, an earring fashioned of what might have been copper, and a teardrop-shaped black stone, then an anklet dangling with bangles shaped like bird wings. She put them all on, then looked at my gym bag. Still going with the phallic foci, I see. Staff and rod. They make me feel, oh, man. Her mouth twitched and she started for the exit. I followed her and found myself opening doors for her out of habit. She didn't seem too horribly upset by it. Outside, cars pulled up into a circle drive at the front of the hotel. Airport shuttles disgorging and swallowing travelers. Taxis picking up men and women in business suits. Elaine slipped the strap of her purse over her good shoulder and stood there quietly. Maybe 30 seconds later, I heard the clopping of hooves on blacktop. A carriage rolled into sight, drawn by a pair of horses. One of them was the blue-white color of a drowned corpse, and its breath steamed in the air. The other was grass green, its mane sown with wallflowers. The carriage itself looked like something from Victorian London, all dark wood and brass filigree, and no one was driving it. The horses came to a halt directly before us and stood there, stamping their feet, tossing their manes. The door to the carriage swung open in silence. No one was inside. I took a surreptitious look around me. None of the straights seemed to have noticed the carriage or the unworldly horses pulling it. A taxi heading for the space the carriage occupied abruptly veered to one side and found him in the spot. I made an effort and could sense the whisper of enchantment around the carriage, subtle and strong, probably encouraging the straights not to notice it. I guess this is our ride, I said. You think? Elaine flipped her braid back over one shoulder and climbed in. This will take us there, but we won't have any protection on the other side. Just remember, Harry, I told you this was a bad idea. Preemptive, I told you so, as I said. Now I've seen everything. Chapter 25. The carriage took off so smoothly I almost didn't feel it. I leaned over the window and twitched the shade aside. We pulled away from the hotel and into traffic with no one the wiser. Cars giving us a wide berth even while not noticing us. That was one hell of a veil. The carriage didn't jounce at all, and after about a minute, wisps of mist began to brush up against the windows. Not long after the mist blocked out the view of the city entirely, the street sounds fading. All that was left was the silver-gray mist and the clop of horse hooves. The carriage stopped about perhaps 5 minutes later, and the door swung open. I opened my gym bag and took out my rod and staff. I slipped the sword cane through my belt and drew out my amulet to lie openly on my chest. Elaine did the same with hers. Then we got out of the carriage. I took a slow, long look at my surroundings. We stood on some kind of spongy grass on low rolling hills surrounded by other low rolling hills. The mist lay over the land like a crepid storm cloud, sluggish and thick in some places, thinner in others. The landscape was dotted with the occasional tree, boles of thick and twisted branches scrawny and long. A tattered-looking raven crouched on a nearby branch, its bead-eyed black eyes gleaming. Cheery, Elaine said. Yeah, very vascular. The carriage started up again, and I looked back to see it vanishing in the mist. Okay, where to now? At my words, the raven let out a croaking call. It shook itself, bits of moldy feather drifting down, and beat its wings a few times, and settled on another branch, almost out of sight. Thank you for that 3-stream streak. I appreciate it. Harry, Lane said, yeah, if you make any corny joke using the word nevermore, I'm going to punch you. Do you understand me? Nevermore, I confirmed. Elaine rolled her eyes, then we both started off after the raven. It led us through the cloudy landscape, flitting silently from tree to tree. We trudged behind it until more trees began to rise in the mist ahead of us, thickening. The ground grew softer, the air more wet and cloying. The raven let another call and then vanished into the trees and out of sight. I peered after and said, do you see a light back there in the trees? Yes, it's supposed to be the place. Fine. I started forward. Elaine caught my wrist and said in a sharp warning tone, Harry? She nodded toward a thick patch of shadows where 2 trees had fallen against one another. I'd just begun to pick out a shape when it moved and came forward, close enough that I could make it out clearly. The unicorn looked like a Budweiser horse, one of the huge draft beasts used for heavy labor. It'd have to have been 18 hands high, maybe more, had a broad chest, 4 heavy hooves, forward pricked ears, and a long equine face. That was where its resemblance to a Clydesdale ended. It didn't have a coat. It just had a smooth and slick-looking carapace, all chitinous scales and plates, mixing colors of dark green and midnight black. Its hooves were cloven and stained with old blood. One spiraling horn rose from its forehead and at least 3 feet long and wickedly pointed. The spirals were serrated on the edges, some of them covered with rust-brown stains. A pair of curling horns like those of a bighorn sheep curved around the sides of its head from the base of the horn. It didn't have any eyes, just smooth, leathery chitin where they should have been. It tossed its head, mane like and a mane of rotted cobwebs danced around its neck and forelegs, long and tattered as a burial shroud. A large moth fluttered through the mist near the unicorn. The beast whirled impossibly nimble and lunged. Its spiral skewed the moth with the savage shake of its head. The unicorn threw the moth to the earth and pulverized the ground. It landed on with sledgehammer blows of the blades of its hooves. It snorted after that and then turned face silently back into the mist-covered trees. Elaine's eyes widened. She looked at me. I glanced at her unicorns. I said, very dangerous. You go first. She arched an eyebrow. Maybe not. I relented. A guardian? Obviously, Elaine said. How do we get past it? Blow it up? Tempting, Elaine said, but I don't think it'll make much of an impression on the mothers if we kill their watchdog. A veil? I shook my head. I don't think unicorns rely on the normal senses. If I remember right, they sense thoughts. In that case, it shouldn't notice you. Ha ha, I said a monotone. Ha ha ha. Oh, my ribs. I have a better plan. I go through while you distract it. With what? I'm fresh out of virginity. And that thing doesn't look much like the unicorns I saw in summer. It's a lot less prancy. With thoughts, I said. They sense thoughts and they're attracted to purity. Your concentration was always better than mine. Theoretically, if you keep an image in your head, it should focus on it, not you. Think of a wonderful thought. Great plan, Peter Pan. Do you have a better one? Elaine shook her head. Okay, I'll try to lead them down there. She gestured down the line of trees. Once I do, get moving. I nodded and Elaine closed her eyes for a moment before her features smoothed over in relaxation. She started forward into the trees, walking at a slow and measured pace. The unicorn appeared again, 10 feet in front of Elaine. The beast snorted and pawed at the earth and reared up on its hind legs, tossing its mane. It then started forward with a slow and cautious walk. Elaine held out her hand to it. It let out a gurgling whicker and nuzzled her palm. Still moving with dreamlike slowness, Elaine turned and began walking down the length of the line of trees. The unicorn followed a pace or two behind her, its tip of its horn bobbing several inches above Elaine's right shoulder. They had gone several paces before I saw that the plan wasn't working. The unicorn's body language changed. Its ears flattened back to its skull, and its feet shifted restlessly before it finally rose up on its hind hooves, preparing to lunge with a deadly horn centered on Elaine's back. There wasn't time to shout a warning. I lifted my blasting rod in my right hand, summoned the force of my will, and pushed it through the focus with a shout of "Fuego!" Fire erupted from the tip of the rod, a scarlet ribbon of heat and flame, and force that glanced out toward the unicorn. After having seen how spectacularly useful my magic was wasn't on the overgrown. I didn't want to chance another fairy beast shrugging it off, so I wasn't shooting for the unicorn itself, but for the ground at its feet. The blast ripped a 3-foot trench in the earth, and the unicorn screamed and thrashed its head, trying to keep its balance. A normal horse would have toppled, but the unicorn somehow managed to get a couple of feet onto solid ground and hurled itself away in a 40-foot standing leap. It landed on its feet already running, body sweeping in a circle to bring it charging toward me. I ran for the nearest tree. The unicorn was faster, but I didn't have far to go, and I put the trunk between us. It didn't slow down. Its horn slammed into the trunk of the head of the dead tree and came through as if it hadn't been there. I flinched away, but not fast enough to avoid catching several flying splinters in the chest and belly, and not fast enough to avoid a nasty cut on my left arm where those serrated edges of the horn ripped through my shirt. The pain of injuries registered only as background data. I stepped around the bole of the tree, taking my staff in both hands, and swung as hard as I could at the delicate bones of the unicorn's rear ankle. Well, on a horse they're delicate. Evidently, on unicorns they're just a bit tender. The fairy beast let out a furious scream, twisted its body, tearing through the tree, shredding it as it whipped its horn free and whirled to orient on me. It lunged, its horn spearing toward me. I swept my staff up, a simple parry quattro, and shoved the tip out past my body while darting a pair of steps to my right. Avoiding the beast's oncoming weight, I kept going, ducking a beat before the unicorn flamed its full quarters, lifted its hind and twisted, lashing out toward my head with both rear hooves. I rolled, came up running, and ducked behind the next tree. The unicorn turned and began stalking toward me, circling the tree, foam pattering its open mouth. Elaine cried out, and I whipped my head around to see her lifting her right hand, the ring on it releasing a cloud of glowing motes that burst around her in a swarm. The little light streaked toward the unicorn and gathered around it, swirling and flashing a dazzling cloud. One of them brushed against me, and my senses abruptly went to a whiteout, overwhelmed with the simple image of walking down a sidewalk in worn shoes, the sun bright overhead, a purse bumping on my hip, stomach twinging with pleasant hunger pangs, the scent of hot asphalt in my nose, children laughing and splashing somewhere nearby. A memory, something from Elaine. I staggered and pushed it away from me, regaining my senses. The motes crowded around the unicorn, darting in to brush against it one at a time, and each touch the fairy beast went wild. It spun and kicked and screamed and lashed out with its horn, lunging at insubstantial adversaries in a wild frenzy. But all to no avail. I looked past them to see Elaine standing in place, her hand extended, her face set in an expression of concentration and strain. "Harry," she shouted, "go. I'll hold it." I rose, heart pounding. "You got it? For a little while, just get to the mothers," Elaine responded. "Hurry. I don't want to leave you alone." A bead of sweat trickled down the side of her face. "You won't be. When it gets loose, I'm not waiting around for it to skewer me." I gritted my teeth. I didn't want to leave Elaine, but to be fair, she had done better than I had. She stood against the unicorn still, only a dozen strides away. Her hand extended, the creature as contained as if she had wrapped it in a net. My slender and straight and beautiful Elaine. Memories, images washed through me, dozens of little things I'd forgotten coming back to me all at once. Her laugh, quiet and wicked in the darkness. The feeling of her slender fingers slipping through mine, her face asleep on the pillow beside me, gentle and peaceful in the morning sun. There were many more, but I pushed them away. They had been a long time ago, and they wouldn't mean a thing if neither of us survived the next few minutes and hours. I turned my back on her, left her struggling against the strength of that nightmarish unicorn, and ran toward the lights of the mist. "Hey, Wolf, what's with the bronc?" You caught me at a good moment here. Usually I chastise people for doing that, but since you're hardly ever here, I will let it slide. I'll take a brief break. How you doing? Nice to see you stop by. This is a live reading day, as you can tell. So Dennis, oh boy. So how'd it go? Good, bad, indifferent? You feel like you made a deal with the Godfather? You know. Oh, I hate when that happens. That sucks. Well, I'm glad you could stop in. I'm just taking a minor break to talk to you, but currently in the midst of reading the book. This has been something I've been doing for a while now. But I always take time out to talk to the friends. This is what I do every Wednesday if I'm off. And I'm up to it. Glad to see that you're not sacrificed to the Mothman just yet. If you know, you know. And besides, and for those of you that aren't following him, you should go ahead and follow him right now because he is a great friend, one of my best friends, and does great content both on Twitch and on the TikTokies. So I always promoting the friends. That is what I do. But feel free to lurk and chill and listen, and hopefully, whatever painkillers they have you on, you can rest. Appreciate you stopping by. That hasn't happened in a hot minute. But anyway, back to the action. Like I said, well, if you feel free to hit the lurk command and lurk in chat and listen to the rest of the story while you recover from your chookies. Glad to see you. Always glad to see you. Anyway, we'll move on to chapter 26. The Never Never is a big place. In fact, it's the biggest place. The Never Never is what the wizards call their entirety of the realm of spirit. It isn't a physical place with geography and weather patterns and so on. It's a shadow world, a magical realm, and its substance is beautiful as thought. It has lots of names like the other side of the next world, and it contains within it just about any kind of spirit realm you can imagine. Somewhere, heaven, hell, Olympus, Elysium, Tartarus, Gehenna, you name it, it's in the Never Never somewhere, in theory at any rate. The parts of the Never Never closest to the mortal world are almost completely controlled by the She. This part of the spirit realm is called fairy and has close ties with our own natural world. As a result, fairy resembles the real world in a lot of ways. It is fairly permanent and unchanging, for example, and has several versions of weather, but make no mistake, it isn't Earth. The rules of reality don't apply as tightly as they do in our world, so fairy can be viciously treacherous. Most who go into it never come back, and I had a gut feeling that I was running through the heart of fairy. The ground sloped down and grew wetter, softer, the mist swallowed sound quickly behind me until all I could hear was my own labored breathing. The run made my heart pound, my wounded hand throb painfully. There was a certain amount of exhilaration to the movement, my limbs and muscles stretching and feeling alive after several months of disuse. I couldn't have kept up the pace for long, but luckily I didn't have far to go. The lights turned out to be a pair of windows in a cottage that stood by itself on a slight rise of ground. Stone obelisks the size of coffins, some fallen and cracked and others still upright, stood scattered in loose rings around the mound. The raven rested on one of them, its beady eyes gleaming. It let out another croaking sound and flew through the open window of the cottage. I stood there panting for a minute, trying to catch my breath. Before I walked through the door, my flesh began to crawl with a shivering sensation. I took a step back and looked at the house. Stone walls, a thatched roof. I could smell mildew beneath an odor of fresh-baked bread. The door was made of some kind of heavy, weathered wood, and the snowflake symbol I'd seen before had been carved into it. Mother Winter, then. If she was anything like Mom, she would have the kind of power that would give any wizard the creeps. It would just hang in the air around her like body warmth, except that it would take a lot of body to feel its warmth through the stone walls and heavy door. I lifted my hand to knock, and the door swung open of its own accord, complete with a melodramatic hammer film's whimper of rusting hinges. A voice, a little more than a creaking whisper, said, "Come in, boy. We've been expecting you." Double gulp, I wiped my palms on my jeans and made sure I had a good grip on both staff and rod before I stepped across the threshold to the dim college. The place was all one room. The floor was wooden, though the boards looked weathered and dry. Shelves stood against the stone walls. A loom rested in the far corner near the fireplace, a spinning wheel beside it. Before the fireplace sat a rocking chair, occupied, squeaking as it moved. A figure sat in it, shrouded in a shawl and hood, as though someone had animated a bundle of blankets and cloth. On the hearth above the fireplace sat several sets of teeth, more or less human size. One looked simple enough, all white and even. The next was rotted looking with chipped incisors and a broken molar. The next set had all pointed teeth, steam of bits of rusty brown, what looked like rotted bits of flesh stuck between them. The last was made out of some kind of silvery metal, shining like a sword. Interesting, came the creaking voice from the creaking chair. Most interesting. Can you feel it? I said from the other side of the cottage, a brisk voice tisked. And I spun the face of the newcomer. Another woman, steeped with age, blew dust from a shelf and ran a cloth over for replacing the bottles and jars. She turned and eyed me with glittering green eyes from within a weathered but rosy face. Of course I do, poor child. He's walked a thorny path. The elderly lady came to me and put her hands firmly on either side of my head, peering either eye. Scars here, some. Stick out your tongue, boy. I went, stick out your tongue. She repeated in a crisp tone. I did. She peered at my tongue and my throat and said, strength, though. And he can be clever at times. It would seem your daughter chose ably. I closed my mouth and she released my hand. Mother Summer, I presume? She beamed up at me. Yes, dear, and this is Mother Winter. She gestured vaguely at the chair by the fire. Don't be offended if she doesn't get up. It's the wrong season, you know. Hand me that broom. I blinked and then reached over to pick up the ramshackle old broom with a gnarled handle and passed it to Mother Summer. The old lady took it and immediately began sweeping the dusty floor of the old cottage. Bah! Whispered Mother Winter. The dust is just going to come back. It's the principle of the thing, Summer said. Isn't that right, boy? I sneezed and mumbled something noncommittal. Pardon me, ladies, but I wondered if you could answer a few questions for me. Winter's head seemed to turn slightly toward me from within her hood. Mother Summer stopped and eyed me, her grass green eyes sparkling. You wish answers? Yes, I said. Well, how can you expect to get them, Winter wheezed, when you do not yet know the proper questions? I said again, brilliance incarnate. That's me. Summer shook her head and said, an exchange, then. She said, we'll ask you a question. For your answer, we'll each give you an answer to what you seek. No offense, but I didn't come here so that you could ask me questions. Are you sure? Mother Summer asked. She swept a pile of dust past me and out the door. How do you know I did? How do you know you didn't? Mother Winter's grasping whisper came to me, disgusted. She'll prattle on all day. Answer us the questions, boy, or get out. I took a deep breath. All right. I said, ask. Mother Winter turned back to face the fire. Simply tell us, boy, which is more important, the body or the soul? Mother picked up. They both fell silent, and I felt their focus on me like the tip of a knife resting against my skin. I suppose that would depend on who was asking whom, I said finally. We ask, Winter whispered. Someone, and we ask you. I thought about my words before I spoke. I know, it shocked me too. Then I would say that were I old, sick, and dying, I would believe that the soul is more important. And if I was a man about to be burned at the stake in order to preserve his soul, I would believe that the body is more important. The words fell on a long moment of silence. I found myself shifting my feet restlessly. Fairly said, Mother whispered raspingly. Why is enough? Summer agreed. Why did you give that answer, boy? Because it's a stupid question. The answer isn't as simple as one or the other. Precisely, Summer said. She walked around the fire and withdrew a baking sheet on a long handle. A roundish loaf of bread was on it. She said on rat to cool. This child sees what she does not. It's not in her nature, Winter remembered. She is what she is. Mother Summer sighed and nodded. These are strange times. Hold on, I said. What she are you talking about here? It's Maeve, isn't it? Mother Winter made a quiet wheezing sound that might have been a laugh. I answered your questions, I said, so pay up. Patience, boy, Mother Summer said. She took a kettle from the hook by the fireplace and poured tea into a pair of cups. She dipped what looked like honey into each, then cream, then gave one to Mother Winter. I waited till each of them had sipped before I said, right, patience expired. I can't afford to wait. Tonight is midsummer. Tonight the balance begins to tilt back to winter, and Maeve is going to try to use the stone table to steal the Summer Knight's mantle for keeps. Indeed, something to be prevented at all costs, Mother Summer arched an eyebrow. Then what's your question? Who killed the Summer Knight? Who stole his mantle? Mother Summer gave me a disappointing glance and sipped her tea. Mother Winter lifted her tea to her hood. I still couldn't see her face, but her hand looked withered, fingers tinged with blue. She lowered the cup and said, You ask a foolish question, boy. You're more clever than this. I folded my arms. What's that supposed to mean? Mother Summer frowned at Winter and said, It means that the who is not as important as the why. And how, Mother Winter added. Think, boy, Summer said. What has theft of the mantle accomplished? I frowned. We're at war between the courts for one, odd activity and magical natural order blank, but mostly the coming war of winter and summer gathering to battle at the stone table. Exactly, Winter whispered. The skin on the back of my neck rippled with a cold and unpleasant sensation. Hell's bells, she'd heard me thinking. But think, Wizard, how was it done? Theft is theft, whether the prize is food, riches, or beauty, or power. Since it didn't seem to matter either way, I did my thinking out loud. When something is stolen, a couple things can happen to it. It can be carried away where it cannot be reached. Hoarded, some put in, such as dragons do. Yeah, okay, it can be destroyed. No, it can't, Mother Winter said. Your own sage tells you that, that German fellow with the wild hair. Einstein, I muttered. Okay, then, but it can be rendered valueless or it can be sold to someone else. Mother Summer nodded. Both of which are change. I held up a hand. Hold it, hold it. Look, as I understand it, this power of the Summer Knight, his mantle, it can't just exist on its own. It has to be inside a vessel. Yes, Winter murmured. Within one of the queens or within the night. And it isn't with one of the queens. True, Summer said. We would sense it were it so. So there's already got to be another night, I said. But if that was true, there'd be no imbalance. I scratched in my head, and as I did, it slowly dawned on me. Unless it had been changed, unless the new night had been changed, transformed into something else, something that left the power trapped, inert, and useless. Both of them regarded me silently, steadily. All right, I said, I have my question. Let's get, they said together. How does the mantle pass on from one night to the next? Mother Summer smiled, but the expression was a grim one. It returns to the nearest reflection of itself, to the nearest vessel of summer. She in turn chooses the next night. That meant that only one of the queens of summer could be behind it. Titania was out already. She had begun the war against Mob because she didn't know where the mantle was. Mother Summer would not have been telling me this information if she'd been the one to do it. That left only one person. Stars and stones, I muttered. Aurora. The two mothers sat down their teacups together. Time presses, Summer said. That which must not may be, Winter continued. You, we judge, are the one who may set things right once more, if you're strong enough, brave enough. Whoa, hold your horses and say, can't I just bring this out to Mom and Titania? Beyond talk now, Mother Winter said. They go to war. Stop them, I said. You two have to be stronger than Mom and Titania. Make them shut up and listen to you. Not that simple, Winter said. Summer nodded. We have the power, but bound within certain limits. We cannot interfere with the queens or ladies, not even on matters so dire as this. What can you do? Summer said. Nothing. I frowned and looked from her to Mother Winter. One aged, cracked hand lifted and beckoned me. Come closer, boy. I started to say no, but my feet moved without asking the rest of me, and I knelt in front of Mother Winter's rocking chair. I couldn't see her even from here. Even her feet were covered by layers of dark cloth, but on her lap rested a pair of knitting needles and a simple square of cloth, trailing thick threads of gray, undyed wool. Mother Winter reached down with her withered hands and took up a pair of rusted shears. She cut the trailing threads and passed me the cloth. I took it again without thinking. It felt soft, cold as if it had been in a refrigerator and tinged with a subtle, dangerous energy. It isn't tied off, I said quietly. Nor should it be, Winter said. It is an unraveling. A what? An unmaking, boy. I am the unmaker, the destroyer. It is what I am. Bound within those threads is the power to undo any enchantment done. Touch the cloth to that which must be undone, unravel the threads. It will be so. I stared at the square cloth for a moment, then asked quietly, any enchantment? Any transformation? Any. My hands started shaking. You mean I could use this to undo what the vampires did to Susan? Just wipe it away and make her immortal again? You could, emissary. Mother Winter's tone held her bone-dry amusement. I swallowed and rose, folding up the cloth. I slipped it in my pocket, careful not to let any of the threads trail out. Is this a gift? No, Winter asked, but a necessity. What am I supposed to do with it? Mother Summer shook her head. It is yours now, and yours to employ. We have reached the limits of how we may act. The rest is yours. Make haste, Winter whispered. Mother Summer nodded. No time remains. Be swift and wise, born child. Go with our blessings. Winter drew her frail hands into the sleeves of her robe. Do not fail, boy. Hell's bells, no pressure, I muttered. I gave each of them a short bow and turned for the door. I stepped over the threshold of the cottage and said, Oh, by the way, I apologize if we did any harm to your unicorn on the way in. I looked back to see Mother Summer arch her brow. Winter's head shifted, and I could see the gleam of light on yellow teeth. Her voice rasped, What unicorn? The door shut again of its own accord. I glowered at the wood for a moment, then muttered, Fucking weirdo fairy biddies. I turned and started back the way I'd come. The unraveling was a cool weight in my pocket and promised to get uncomfortably chilly if I left it there too long. The thought of the unraveling made me walk faster, excitement skipping through me. If what the mother said was true, I'd be able to use the cloth to help Susan, which was something just this sign of divine intervention. All I had to do was finish up this case, and then I could go find her. Of course, I thought sorely, finishing up this case was likely to kill me. The mothers may have given me some insight into magic doily, but they sure as hell hadn't given me a freaking clue as to how to resolve this, and I realized they hadn't really said. Aurora did it. I knew they had to speak the truth to me, and their statements had led me to that conclusion, but how much of it was this mysterious prohibition from direct involvement, and how much of it had been a fistful of fairy trickery? Make haste, I rasped, trying to impersonate Winter's voice, that we have reached the limit. I said, mimicking Summer. I quickened my pace in front of that last little comment Winter had made. She had almost taken almost palpable glee in making, as though I'd given her an opening she wouldn't otherwise have had. What unicorn? I gnawed over the question if it was indeed a statement of importance, not just a passing mutter, then it had to mean something. I frowned. It meant that there hadn't been a guardian around the little cottage, or at least not one Mother Winter had put there, so who had? The answer hit me low in the gut, a sensation of physical sickness coming along with the realization. I stopped and clawed for my sight. I didn't get to it before Grum came out from under a veil, Lane standing close behind him. He caught me flat-footed. The ogre drove a sledgehammer toward my face. There was a flash of impact, the sensation of falling a cool earth beneath my cheek. Then the scent of Lane's soul perfume. Then blackness. See, what he's not really thinking is that they said that the power of the night was bound away somewhere. And Winter gave him something to undo an enchantment. And of course he's thinking of Susan, because that's, what he's really thinking about. But I get the feeling he's not going to get to use it for that. And also, too, he may have trusted the wrong person, per usual. That's Harry for you. Chapter 27. I came to on the ground of that dark Never woods. Spirit realm or not, I felt cold and started shivering uncontrollably. That made playing possum pretty much impossible, so I sat trying to take stock. I didn't feel any bruises or breaks, so I hadn't been pounded while I was out. I probably hadn't been long. Mother Winter's unraveling was no longer in my pocket. My bag was gone, as was my ring and my bracelet. My staff and rod, needless to say, had been taken as well. I could still feel my mother's pinnacle amulet against my chest, though, which came as something of a surprise. My hand throbbed where Mom had driven the freaking letter opener through it. Other than that, I felt more or less whole. Huzzah. I squinted at my surroundings next and found a ring of toadstools growing up around me. They weren't huge, tentacle, horrific fang toadstools or anything like that, but it put a little chill in me all the same. I lifted my hand and reached out for them tentatively, extending my wizard senses along with a gesture. I hit a wall. I couldn't think of another way to describe it. Where the ring began, my ability to reach, move, and perceive, and my supernatural senses simply ended. Trap. Double huzzah. Only after I'd gotten an idea of my predicament did I stand up and face my captors. There were 5 of them, which seemed less than fair. I recognized the nearest right away. Aurora, the Summer Lady, now dressed in what could only describe a battle gown, made out of some sort of silver mail as fine and light as cloth. It clung closely to her from the top of her throat down to her wrists and ankles and shone with its own dim radiance in the forest gloom. She wore a sword at her hip, and upon her pale hair rested a garland of living leaves. She turned her green eyes to me, heartbreakingly lovely, and regarded me with an expression of both sad and resolve. Wizard, Aurora said, I regret that it has come to this, but you have come too close to interfering. Once you have served your purpose, I could not allow you to continue your involvement. I grimaced and looked past her at the ogre grum, huge and scarlet-skinned and silent, and the horrific unicorn that had apparently been guarding the way to Mother Winter's cottage. What do you intend to do with me? Kill you, Aurora said, her voice gentle. I regret the necessity, but you're too dangerous to be allowed to live. I squinted at her. Then why haven't you? Good question. The fourth person present, Lloyd Slade, the Winter Knight. He still wore his biker leathers, but he had added a bits of mail and a few pieces of plate to the ensemble. He wore a sword at his hip, another on his back, and bore a heavy pistol on his belt. The gaunt, tense hunger of his expression hadn't changed. He looked nervous and angry. If it had been up to me, I'd have cut your throat when Grim first dropped you. Why call him Grum? I said, scowling at the ogre. You might as well drop the glamour, Lord Marshal. There's not much point to it now. The ogre's face twisted with surprise. I glared spitefully at the dark unicorn spat. You too, Carrick. Both ogre and unicorn glanced at Aurora. The fairy queen never took her eyes off me, but nodded. The ogre's form blurred and twisted and resolved itself into the form of Talos, the she-lord from the Aurora's penthouse with the Rothschild. His pale hair had been drawn back into a fighting braid, and he wore close-fit mail and some glittering black metal that made him look real thin and deadly. At the same time, the unicorn shook itself and rose up into the hulking form of Korik, the centaur, also dressed in mail and bearing weapons of fairy make. He stamped one huge hoof and said nothing. Aurora walked in a circle around me, frowning. How long have you known, wizard? I shrugged. Not long. I started getting it on the way out of Mother Winter's cottage. Once I knew where to start, it wasn't hard to start adding up the numbers. We don't have time for this, Slate said, and spat on the ground to one side. If you puzzled it out, others may have as well, Aurora said, her voice patient. We should know if any other opposition is coming. Tell me, wizard, how'd you piece it together? Go to hell, I snapped. Aurora turned to the last person there and said, Can he be reasoned with? Elaine stood a little apart from the others, her back to them. My bag rested on the ground near her feet, and my rod and staff lay there, too. She had added a cloak of emerald green to her outfit, somehow making it look natural. She glanced at Aurora, then at me. She averted her eyes quickly. You've already told him you're going to kill him. He won't cooperate. Aurora shook her head. More sacrifices. I'm sorry you pushed me to this, wizard. Her hand moved, some unseen force jerked my chin up. My eyes to hers, they flashed a ripple of colors, and I felt the force of her mind, her will, glide past my defenses and into me. I lost my balance and staggered, leaning helplessly against the invisible solidity of the circle she imprisoned me in. I tried to fight it, but it was like trying to push water up a hill. Nothing for me to strain against, nothing for me to focus upon. I was on her turf, trapped in a circle of her power. She flowed into me, down through my eyes, and all I could do was watch the pretty colors. Now, she said, her voice was the gentlest, sweetest thing I'd ever heard. What did you learn of the Summer Knight's death? You were behind it. I heard myself saying, my voice slow and heavy, you had him killed. How? Lloyd Slade, he hates me. You recruited him to help you. Elaine took him inside Ruel's building through the Never Never. He fought Ruel. That's why there was ooze on the stairs. The water on Ruel's arms and legs where summer fire met winter ice. Slate threw him down the stairs and broke his neck. And his mantle of power, redirected, I mumbled. You gathered it in and placed it to another person. Who? The changeling girl. I said, Lily, you gave her the mantle and then you turned her to stone. That statue in your garden, it was right in front of me. Very good, Laura said, and gentle praise rippled through me. I fought to regain my senses to escape the glittering green prison of her eyes. What else? You hired the ghoul, the tigress. You sent her after me before Mom even spoke to me. I do not know this ghoul. You're incorrect, wizard. I do not hire killers. Continue. You set me up before I came to interview you. In what way? Aurora pressed. Maeve must have ordered Slate to take Elaine out. He made it look like he tried and missed, but Elaine played it for more. You helped her fake that injury. Why did I do that? To keep me upset, worried that when I spoke to you, I wouldn't have the presence of mind to corner you with a question. That's why you attacked me, too, telling me what a monster I'd become, to keep me off balance, to keep me from asking the right questions. Yes, Aurora said, and after that, you decided to take me out. You sent Talos, Elaine, and Slate to kill me, and you created that construct in the garden center. Slate steps closer. Spooky. He said he doesn't look all that smart. Yet he used only reason, plus knowledge doubtless came from the queens and the mothers. He put it together for himself rather than being told. At that, her gaze slanted past me to Elaine. I tried to pull away and couldn't. Great, Slate said. No one squealed. Can we kill the great Kreskin now? Aurora held up a hand to Slate and asked me, do you know my next objective? You knew that if you bound up the Summer Knight's mantle, Mother Winter would provide an unraveling to free it and restore the balance. You waited for her to give it to me. Now you're going to take it And the statue of Lily, you're going to take her to the stone table during the battle. You'll use the unraveling, free Lily from being stone, and kill her on the table after midnight. The Summer Knight's power will go into winter permanently. You want to destroy the balancing fairy. I don't know why. Aurora's eyes flashed dangerously. She removed her gaze from mine. It was like suddenly falling back up a flight of stairs. I staggered back, tearing my eyes from her and focusing on the ground. Why? It should be obvious to you. Why, wizard? You of all people. She spun in a glitter of silvery mail, pacing restlessly back and forth. The cycle must be broken. Summer and winter constantly chasing each other, wounding what the other heals and healing what the other wounds. Our war, our senseless contest, waged for no reason other than it has always been so, and mortals trapped between us, crushed by the struggle, made pawns and toys. She took a shuddering, angry breath. It must end, and it will, and I will end it. I ground my teeth, shivering. You'll end it by sending the natural world into chaos? I did not set the price. Aurora hissed. I caught sight of her eyes out of the corner of my vision, started tracking up to her face. I forced my gaze down again, barely in time. She continued speaking in a low, impassioned voice. I hate every moment of the things I had to do to accomplish this, but it should have been done long since, wizard. Delay is just as deadly. How many have died or been tormented by madness, by Maeve and those like her? You yourself have been tortured, abused, nearly enslaved by them. I do what must be done. I swallowed and said, harming and endangering mortal kind in order to help them, that's insane. Perhaps, Aurora said, but it's the only way. She faced me again, asked her voice cold, does the White Council know what you've discovered? Bite me, fairy fruitcake. Slate stopped with a laugh, hiding under a cough. I felt more than I saw Aurora's sudden surge of rage sparked by the winter night, but directed at me. A flare of fright erupted from her, and I felt the sun heating as the side of my body nearest her. The hairs on my arm rose straight up. Her voice rang out hot and violent and strong. What did you say, ape? They don't, Elaine said, her voice tense. She put herself between me and Aurora, her back to me. He told me before we left. For the mothers, the council doesn't realize the depth of what's happening. By the time they do, it'll be too late for them to act. Fine, Slate said. He's the last loose end. Kill him and let's get on with it. Damn it, Slate, I said. Use your head, man. What do you think you're going to get out of helping her like this? Slate gave me a cold smile. That old bastard Ruel's power, for one thing. I'll be twice the knight I was before. And then I'm going to settle some accounts with that little bitch Maeve. He licked his lips. After that, Aurora and I will decide what to do next. I let out a harsh bray of laughter. I hope you got that in writing, dimwit. Do you really think she'd let a man, and a mortal at that, have that much power over her? Slate's eyes became more aware, and I pressed him. Think about it. Has she ever given it to you straight? A statement, not a question or a dodge or something that she's led you to assume? Suspicion grew in his gaze, but Aurora laid a hand on his shoulder. Slate's eyes grew a little cloudy at her touch, and he closed them. Peace, my knight. The summer lady murmured. The wizard was a trickster and desperate who would say anything he thought might save him. Nothing has changed between us. I ground my teeth at the meaningless words, but Aurora had Slate's number, whatever it was. Maybe all that time in Maeve's company had softened him, the drugs and pleasures she'd fed him, making him more open to suggestion. Maybe Aurora had found a hole in his psychology. Either way, he wasn't going to listen to me. I looked around, but Corrick and Talos ignored me. Aurora kept on whispering to Slate. That left only one person to talk to, and the thought of it felt like someone driving nails into my chest. Elena said, this is crazy. Why are you doing this? She didn't look up at me. Survival, Harry. I promised to help Aurora or give up my own life as forfeit payment for all the years she protected me. I didn't know when I made the promise that you'd be involved. She fell quiet for a moment and then swallowed before she said, her voice forced a little louder. I didn't know. If Aurora isn't stopped, someone is going to get hurt. Someone gets hurt every day, Elaine answered. When you get right down to it, does it matter who, how, or why? People are going to die, Elaine. That stung her, and she looked up at me, sharp anger warring on the sheen of tears in her gray eyes. Better them than me. I faced her without looking away. Better me than you, then, huh? She broke first, turning to regard Aurora and Slate. Looks that way. I folded my arms and leaned back against the back of my toadstool cell. I went over my options, but they were awfully limited. If Aurora wanted me dead, she'd be able to see to it quite handily, and unless the cavalry came riding over the hill, there wasn't diddly I could do about it. Call me a pessimist, but my life has been marked with a notable lack of cavalry. Checkmate. Which left me with one last spell to throw. I closed my eyes for a moment, reaching inside, gathering up the magic, the life force within me. Any wizard has a reservoir of power inherent in him. Power drawn from the core of itself rather than from his surroundings. Aurora's circle could cut me off from drawing upon ambient magic to fuel the spell, but it couldn't stop me from using the energy within me. Granted, once used, there wouldn't be anything left to keep me breathing, my heart pumping, electricity course going through my brain. But then, that's why they call it a death curse, isn't it? It was only a moment later that I opened my eyes to see Aurora draw back from Lloyd's slate. The Winter Knight focused his eyes on me, scary eyes, empty of anything like reason, and drew the sword from his belt. My grim business, Aurora said. Goodbye, Mr. Dresden. Well, now. Chapter 28. I faced Slate head on. I figured as long as I was going to take one of those swords, it might as well have a shot at killing me pretty quick. No sense in dragging it out, but I left my eyes on Aurora and held whatever power I had gathered up and ready. I am sorry, Wizard, Aurora said. You're about to be, I muttered. Slate drew back his blade and ran job without enough class to be an actual katana, intense, preparing to strike. The blade glittered really, really sharp. Elaine caught Slate's wrist and said, "Wait." Aurora gave Elaine a sharp and angry look. "What are you doing?" "Protecting you," Elaine said. "If you let Slate kill him, he'll break the circle around Dresden." Aurora looked from Elaine to me and back. "And?" "Elaine!" I snarled. She regarded me with flat eyes. "And you'll leave yourself open to his death curse. He'll take you with him or make you wish he had." Aurora lifted her chin. "He isn't that strong." "Don't be so sure," Elaine said. "He's the strongest wizard I've ever met, strong enough to make the White Council nervous. Why take a pointless risk so close to the end?" "You treacherous bitch," I said. "God damn you, Elaine." Aurora frowned at me and gestured to Slade. He lowered the sword and put it away. "Yet he's too dangerous to leave alive." "Yes," Elaine agreed. "What would you suggest?" "We're in the Never Never," Elaine said. "Arrange his death and leave. Once you're back in Mortal Lands, he won't be able to reach you. Let him spend his curse on Mob if he wishes, or on his godmother, but it won't be on you. But when I leave, my power will go with me. He won't be held by the circle. What do you suggest?" Elaine regarded me passionlessly. "Drowning," she said finally. "Call water and let the earth drink him. I'll lock him into a place with a binding of my own. Mortal magic will last even after I've left." "Aurora, are you capable of holding him?" "I know his defenses," Elaine responded. "I'll hold him as long as necessary." Aurora regarded me in silence for a moment. "So much rage," she said. "Very well, Elaine, hold him." It didn't take her long. Elaine had always been smoother at magic than me, more graceful. She murmured something in the language she had chosen for her magic, some variant of Old Egyptian, adding a roll of her wrist and a graceful ripple of her fingers, and I felt her spell lock around me like a full-body straitjacket, paralyzing me from chin to toes, wrapping me in silent, unseen force that pressed against my clothes, flattening them and made it hard to take a deep breath. At the same time, Aurora closed her eyes, her hands spread at her sides, and she leveled her palms and slowly raised them. From within the circle, I couldn't sense what she was doing, but there was anything wrong with my eyes and ears. The ground gurgled, and there was a sudden scent of rotten eggs. I felt the earth beneath me shift and sag, and then a slow bleep bleep of earth settling as water began rising up beneath me. It took maybe 5 seconds for the ground to become so soft that my feet sank into the warm mud up to my ankles. Hell's bells. "Mortal time is racing," Aurora said, and opened her eyes. "The day grows short. Come." Without so much as glancing at me, she swept away into the mist. Slate fell into place at her heels, and Talos followed several paces behind, slim and dangerous in his dark armor. Korik the centaur spared me a sneer and a satisfied snort before he gripped a short, heavy spear in his broad fist and turned to follow the summer lady, hooves striking down in decisive clops. That left Elaine. She came forward until she stood almost. Every time I felt like this, I was close enough to touch me, slender and pretty. She regarded me steadily while she took a band from her jeans pocket and bound her hair back into a tail. "Why, Elaine?" I asked. I struggled furiously against the spell, but it's stronger than me. "Why the hell did you stop her?" "You're an idiot, Harry," she said. "A melodramatic fool. You always were." I kept sinking to the earth and became level with her eyes. "I could have stopped her. I couldn't be sure you wouldn't have thrown the curse at me, too." She looked over her shoulder. Aurora had paused. The dim shape of the mist was waiting. The watery earth kept drawing me down, and I looked up at her now at the soft skin on the underside of her chin. She looked down at me and said, "Goodbye, Harry." She turned and walked after Aurora. She then paused, one leg bent, turned enough so I could see her profile. She said in that same casually neutral tone, "It's just like old times." After that, they left me there to die. It's hard not to panic in that kind of situation. I mean, I've been in trouble before, but not in that kind of tick-tock, here it comes way. The problem was in front of me was simple, steady, and inescapable. The ground kept getting softer, and I kept on sliding down into it. The sensation of it was warm and not totally unpleasant. I mean, people pay money for hot mud baths, but mine would be lethal if I didn't find a way out. The mud was already creeping over my thighs. I closed my eyes and tried to focus. I reached out to feel the fabric of the lane spell around me and pushed, trying to break through it. I didn't have enough strength. Once Aurora's circle dropped, I'd be able to reach out for more power, but I'd be running short on time, and even so, brute strength wasn't the answer. If I just randomly hammered at the spell around me, it would be like trying to escape from a set of shackles using dynamite. I would tear myself apart along with the binding. Still, that dangerous option seemed to be my only hope. I tried to hang on, to stay calm and focused, and to wait for Aurora's circle to give out. I got the giggles. Don't ask me why, but under the pressure of the moment, it seemed damn funny. I tried not to, but I cackled and chortled as the warm mud slid up over my hips, my belly, and my chest. "Just like old times," I wheezed. "Yeah, just like old times, Lane, you backbiting, poisonous, treacherous." And then a thought hit me, just like old times. Deceitful, wicked, clever girl. If this works, I'll buy you a pony. I put the studied indifference of her words together with her whole bloodless attitude. That wasn't the Elaine I remembered. I could buy that she would murder me in a fit of rage, poison me out of flaming jealousy, or bomb my car of sheer stubborn Pete, but she would never do it and feel nothing. The mud covered my chest, and still Aurora's circle hadn't faded. My heart pounded wildly, but I struggled to remain calm. I started hyperventilating. I might need every spare second I could get. The mud covered my throat and slid up over my chin. I wasn't fighting it anymore. I got a good deep breath just before my nose went under. Then darkness pressed over my eyes, and I was left floating in a thick, gooey warmth. The only sound, the beating of my own heart thudding in my ears. I waited, and my lungs began to burn. I waited, not moving, fire spreading over my chest. I kept everything as relaxed as I could and counted the heartbeats. Somewhere between 74 and 75, Aurora's circle vanished. I reached out for power, gathering in, shaping it in my mind. I didn't want to rush it, but it's hard not to. I took all the time I could without panicking before I reached out again for the fabric of Lane's spell. I'd been right. It was the same binding she'd used when we were kids, when she would have been holding me down while my old master just in the morning prepared to enthrall me. I'd found the way out as a kid because Elaine and I had shared a certain impatience for our magical studies. Besides schoolwork, we had been forced to pursue an entirely different regimen of spells and mental disciplines as well. Some nights we would have homework until dinner, then head right for the magical stuff till well after midnight, working out spells and formulating until our eyes ached. Toward the end, that got to be rough when all we wanted was to be in bed, doing things much less scholarly and much more hormonal until other parts ached. To that end, we'd split the work. One of us would work out the spell while the other did the homework, then a quick round of copying, and straight to bed. I'd been the one who worked out that binding, and it sucked. It sucked because I had no flexibility to it, no subtlety, no class. It dropped a cocoon of hardened air around the target and locked it there, period. End of story. As teenagers, we thought impressively effective and simple. As a desperate man about to die, I realized it was a brilliant spell, like a diamond that was simultaneously the hardest stones on earth that easily fractured and struck the correct angle. Now that I knew what I was doing, I found the clumsy center of the spell where I'd located all those years ago, tying all the strands of energy together at the small of the back like a Christmas bow. There in the mud and darkness, I focused on the weak spot of the spell, gathered my will, and muttered with my mouth clenched closed, "Tappity tap tap." It came out, but that didn't make any difference on the practical side. The spell was clear in my head. A spike of energy lashed into the binding, and I felt it loosen. My heart pounded with excitement. I reached out the spell again. The third time I tried it, the binding slipped, and I flexed my arms and legs, pulling them slowly free. I had done it. I'd escaped the binding. Now I was merely drowning in what amounted to quicksand. The clock was running against me as I started to feel dizzy, as my lungs struggled against my will, trying to force out what little air remained stuck in a deep breath of nice cleansing muck. I reached for more power, gathered it in, and hoped I hadn't spun around without noticing. I pushed my palms toward my feet, just as my lungs forced me to exhale, and shouted with it, "Fazari!" Naked force lashed out toward my feet, bruising one leg as it swept past. Even in magic, you can't totally ignore physics, and my action exerting force down against the earth had predictable equal and opposite reaction. The earth exerted force up toward me, and I flew out of the mud, muck and water flying up with me in a cloud of spray. I had the wild impression of mist and dreary ground, then a tree, And then it was replaced with a teeth-rattling impact. By the time I coughed out a mouthful of mud and choked out air back into my lungs, I had the presence of mind to wipe mud out of my eyes. I found myself 20 feet off the ground, dangling from the branches of one of the skeletal trees. My arms and legs hung loosely beneath me, and my jeans felt tight at the waist. I tried to see how I got hung up that way, but I couldn't. I could possibly get a hand and a foot on different branches, but I could barely wiggle, and I couldn't get loose. You foiled the fairy queen, I panted myself. You survived your own execution, get away from certain death, and get stuck up in a freaking tree. I struggled some more just as uselessly. One mud-covered boot fell off and hit the ground with a soggy flop. God, I hope no one sees you like this. The sound of footsteps drifted out of the mist, coming closer. I pushed my heel of my hand against my right eyebrow. Some days you just can't win. I folded my arms and had them sternly crossed over my chest when a tall, shrouded form emerged from the mist below. Dark robes swirled, a deep hood concealed, and a gloved hand gripped a wooden staff. The gatekeeper turned his head toward me and became still for a moment. Then he reached his other gloved hand into his hood. He made a strangled, muffled sound. Hi, I said. King of Wit, that's me. The gatekeeper sounded as though he had to swallow half a gallon of laughter as he responded. Greetings, Wizard Dresden. Am I interrupting anything? My other boot fell off and plopped to the ground. I regarded my dangling, muddy sock feet with pursed lips. Nothing at all that important. That is good, he said. He paced around a bit, peering up at me and said, There's a broken branch through your belt. Get your right foot on the branch below you, your left hand on the one above you, and loosen your belt. You should be able to climb down. I did as he said, got my muddy self down from the tree into earth. Thank you, I said. I probably thought to myself that I'd been a hell of a lot more grateful about 5 minutes earlier. What are you doing here? Looking for you, he said. You've been watching? He shook his head, calling, listening. But I have had glimpses of you, and matters are worsening in Chicago. Stars and stones, I muttered and picked up my boots. I don't have time to chat. The gatekeeper put a gloved hand on my arm. But you do, he said. My vision is limited, but I know you have accomplished your mission for the Winter Queen. She will keep her end of the bargain, granted safe passage through her realm. So far as the council is concerned, that will be enough. You would be safe. I have to pause right there. There's an ad break going on right now. Not that far from finishing, actually. Get another drink of tea. I hope y'all are enjoying the stream. I know it's a very restful stream, but I'm actually look at my I figured out to open that up. Just taking the ad break for the readings portion. I'm hoping that I'll be able to finish with the next in the next week or two. Damn, we've got about 51 seconds left on the ad break. Oh, it has gotten rather dim for a 3 o'clock on a May afternoon. In the morning, we do have weather or some such coming in. What? Oh, hello. Well, that was quick. Okay. It couldn't have waited like maybe another month or so for another $1 or another penny. Well, that's helpful. And welcome back from the ad break. Let me continue on with this chapter. Probably won't be much longer until I'll be ending. That depends on what. Let's see. Here. Wizard Dresden, you could end your involvement in the matter. You could choose to step clear of it right now. It would end the trial. My achy, weary, half-smothered and dirty stuff like that idea ended, go home, get a hot shower, a bunch of hot food, sleep. It was impossible anyway. I was only one tired, beat-up, strung-out guy, wizard or not. The fairies had way too many powers and tricks to deal with on a good day, let alone this one. Excuse me. I knew what Aurora was up to now, but how she was being set charged with mental health. Yeah, sorry. Oh my gosh. A battlefield, furthermore, that I had no idea to have him find, much less survive. The stone table had been in some weird pocket in the Never like nothing I'd ever felt before. I had no idea how to reach it. Impossible, painful, way too dangerous. I could call it a day, get some sleep, and hope I did better the next time I came up to the plate. Meryl's face came to mind, ugly and tired and resolute. I also saw the statue of Lily in Elaine, trapped by her situation, but fighting things in her own way despite the odds against her. I thought of taking the unraveling from Mother Winter, able to think of nothing but using it for my own goals, for helping Susan. Now it would be used for something else entirely, and as much as I want to forget about it and go home, I would bear a measure of the responsibility for the consequences of its use if I did. I shook my head and looked around until I spotted my bag, jewelry, staff, and rod on the ground several yards away from the muddy bog Aurora had created. I recovered all of them. No, I said, it isn't over. No, the gatekeeper said, surprising the tone. Why not? Because I'm an idiot, I sighed. There are people in trouble. Wizard, no one expects you to stop a war between the She courts. The council would assign no such responsibility to any one person. To hell with the She courts, I said. To hell with the council, too. There are people I know in trouble, and I'm the one who turned some of this loose. I'll clean it up. You sure? The gatekeeper said. You won't step out of the trial now? My mud-crusted fingers fumbled with the clasp of my bracelet. I won't. The gatekeeper regarded me in silence for a moment and said, then I will not vote against you. A chill went through me. Oh, you would have? Had you walked away, I would kill you myself. I stared at him for a second and then asked why. His voice came out soft and resolute, but not unkind. Because voting against you would have been the same thing in any case. It seems to me that I should take full responsibility for that choice rather than hiding behind council protocol. I got the bracelet on and shoved my feet back into my boots. Well, thanks for not killing me then. If you'll excuse me, I've got somewhere to be. Yes, the gatekeeper said. He held out his hand, a small velvet bag in it. Take these. You might find use of them. I frowned at him and took the bag. Inside, I found a little glass jar of some kind of brownish gel and a chipped grayish stone, a piece of fine silvery thread. What's this? An ointment for the eyes, he said. His tone became somewhat dry, easier on the nerves than using the sight to see through the veils and glamours of the She. I lifted my eyebrows. Bits of dry mud fell into my eyes and made me blink. Okay, and this rock? A piece from the stone table, he said. It will show you the way to get there. I blinked some more, this time in surprise. You're helping me? That would constitute interfering in the trial, he corrected me. So far as anyone else is concerned, I'm merely seeing to it that the trial can reach its full conclusion. I found out, if you've just given me the rock, maybe, I said. The ointment's something else. You're interfering. The council would have a fit. The gatekeeper sighed. Wizard Dresden, this is something I've never said before and do not anticipating saying again. He leaned closer to me, and I could see the shadows of his features gaunt and fade inside his hood. One dark eye sparkled with something like humor as he offered his hand and whispered, sometimes what the council does not know does not hurt it. I found myself grinning. I shook his hand. He nodded. Hurry. The council dare not interfere with the internal affairs of the She, but we will do what we can. He stretched out his staff and drew it in a circle in the air with barely a whisper of disturbance. He opened the fabric between the Never and the mortal world as though his staff had simply drawn a circle of Chicago to step into, the street outside my basement apartment, specifically. Allah and good fortune go with you. I nodded to him in courage, then I turned to the portal and stepped through it from that dark morning the ferry to my usual parking space at home. Hot summer air hit my face, steamy and crackling with tension. Rain sleeted down and thunder shook the ground. The light was already fading and dark was coming on. I ignored them all and headed for my apartment. The mud substance of the Never Never melted into a viscous goo that began evaporating at once, assisted by the driving, cleansing rain. I had calls to make, and I wanted to change into non-slimy clothes. My fashion sense is somewhat stunted, but I still had to wonder, what do you wear to a war? I'm taking another drink. My voice is starting to fade, so. I was looking to see how much longer we had. And see, I'm highly tempted to finish it. Let's see. Oh, we got 10, 15, may or may not go part 6. We'll see. Chapter 29. I went with basic black. I made my calls, set an old doctor's valise outside the front door, got a quick shower, dressed in black. A pair of old black military-style boots, black jeans, mostly clean, a black tee, a black ball cap with a scarlet Coca-Cola emblem on it, and the top everything my leather duster. Susan had given me the coat a while back, complete with a mantle that falls to my elbows and an extra-large portion of billow. The weather was stormy enough, both figuratively and literally, to make me want reassurance of the heavy coat. I loaded up on the gear, too. Everything I had brought with me that morning, plus the gatekeeper's gifts and my home defense cannon, a heavy caliber long barrel Dirty Harry Magnum. I debated carrying the gun on me and decided against it. I'd have to go through Chicago to get to wherever point would lead me to the stone table, and I didn't need to get arrested for a concealed carry. I popped the gun case and all into my bag and hoped I wouldn't have to get to it in a hurry. Billy and the werewolves arrived maybe 10 minutes later, the minivan pulling up outside and beeping the horn. I checked the doctor bag, closed it, and went out to the van, my gym bag bumping against my side. The side door rolled open, and I stepped up to toss my gear in. I hesitated upon seeing the van, packed shoulder to shoulder with young people. There were 10 or 11 of them in there. Billy leaned over from the driver's seat and asked, "Problem?" I said only volunteers, I said. I don't know how much trouble we're going into. Right, Billy said. I told them that. The kids in the van murmured their agreement. I blew out my breath. Okay, people, same rules as last time. I'm calling the shots, and if I give you an order, you take it. No arguments? Deal. There was a round of solemn nods. I nodded in reply and peered to the back of the dim van at a head of dull green hair. Merrill, is that you? The changeling girl gave me a solemn nod. I want to help, so does Fix. I caught a flash of white hair and dark, nervous eyes from beside Merrill. The little man lifted his hand and gave me a twitching wave. If you go along, I said, same rules as everybody else. Otherwise, you stay here. All right, Merrill said with a laconic nod. Yeah, Fix said, okay. I looked around at all of them and grimaced. They looked so damn young. Or maybe it was me just feeling old. I reminded myself that Billy and the Alphas had already had their baptism by fire, and they had almost 2 years to hone their skills against some of the low-intensity riffraff of the Chicago underground scene. But I knew they were getting in way over their heads on this one. I needed them, and they volunteered. The trick was to make sure that I didn't lead them to a horrible death. Okay, I said, let's go. Billy pushed open that passenger door, and Georgia moved back to the crowded rear seats. I got in beside Billy and asked, did you get them? Billy passed me a plastic bag from Walmart. Yeah, that's why it took so long to get here. There was police tape all over and cops standing around. Thanks. I tore up a package of orange plastic box knives and put them into the doctor's valise. Then snapped it closed again. Then I took the gray stone from my pocket, wrapped it thread hung around by my hand. Hung by it around my hand and held my hand out in front of me, palm down and level with my eyes. Let's go. Okay, Billy said, give me a skeptical look. Go where? This gray stone quivered and twitched, and it swung very definitely to the east, drawing the string with it so that it hung at a slight angle, running straight down. Pointed that way, the stone leaned that and said, that away, toward the lake. Got it, Billy said, pulled the van out of the street. So where are we heading? I grunted and stuck an index finger up. Up, Billy said, his voice skeptical. We're going up. I watched the stone. It wobbled, and I focused on it as I might my own amulet. It stabilized and leaned toward the lake without wavering or swinging on a string. Up there, I clarified. Where up there? Lightning flashed and pointed toward it. There, up there. Billy glanced at someone in the back and pursed his lips thoughtfully. I hope you know a couple streets I don't then. He drove for a while more, with me telling him to bear right or left. At a stoplight with the rain still pounding on the windshield. Wipers flicking steadily, he asked, so what's the score? Well-intentioned but dangerously insane bad guys are ahead coming down the stretch, I said. The ferry courts are duking it out up there, and it's probably going to be very hairy. The summer ladies are batty, and the winter night's her bitch. She has a magic hanky. She's going to use it to change a statue into a girl and kill her on the big Flintstones table at midnight. There were a couple of grunts as Meryl pushed away toward the front of the van. A girl? Lily? I glanced from the stone back to her and nodded. We have to find Aurora and stop her. Save the girl. Or what happens? Billy asked. Badness. Kaboom badness? I shook my head. Mostly longer term than that. Like what? How do you feel about ice ages? Do you mind if I ask a few questions? I kept my eyes on the chip of stone. Go ahead. Right, Billy said. As I understand it, Aurora is trying to tear apart both fairy courts, right? Yeah, why? I mean, why not just shoot for winter? Why not shoot just for winter so her side wins? Because she can't. I said, she's limited in her power. She knows she doesn't have the strength it would take to force things on her own. The queens and mothers could stop her easily, so she's using the only method she has open to her. Screwing up the balance of power, Billy says. But she's doing it by giving a bunch of mojo to Winter. Limits, I said. She can't move Winter's power around at all the way she can Summer's. That's why she had to kill her own Knight. She knew she could pour his power out into a vessel of her choosing. Lily, growled Meryl. I glanced over my shoulder and nodded. Someone who would trust her, who wouldn't be able to protect herself against Aurora's enchantment. So why'd she turn the girl to stone? Billy asked. It was her cover, I said. The queens could have found an active Knight. Well, once Lily was turned to stone, the Knight's mantle was stuck in limbo. Aurora knew that everyone would suspect Mob of doing something clever and that Titania would be forced to prepare to fight. Mob would have to move in response, and the pair of them would create the battleground around the stone table. What's the table for? Pouring power into one of the courts, I said. It belongs to Summer until midnight tonight. After that, any power that gets poured in goes to Winter, which is where we're going now. Billy said, uh-huh. I said, turn left at the light. Billy nodded. So Aurora steals the power and hides it, which forces the queens to bring out the battleground with the big table. Right. Now Aurora plans to take Lily there and use the unraveling to free her of the stone's curse she's under. Then she kills her and touches off Fairygeddon. She's got to get to the table after midnight, but before Mob's forces actually take the ground around it. That means she's only got a small window of opportunity. We need to stop her from using it. I still don't get it, Billy said. What the hell is she hoping to accomplish? Probably she thinks she can ride out the big war. Then she'll put it all together again from the ashes just the way she wants it. Thank God she's not too arrogant or anything, Billy muttered. It seems to me that Mob is going to be handed a huge advantage in this. Why didn't Aurora just work together with Mob? It probably never occurred to her to try it that way. She's Summer, Mob is Winter. The two don't work together. Small favors, Billy said. So what do we do to help? I'm going to have to move around through a battleground. I need muscle to do it. I don't want to stop to fight. We just keep moving till I can get to the stone table and stop Aurora. And I want all of you changed before we go up there. Fairies are vindictive as hell, and you're going to piss off some of them. Better if they never get to see your faces. Right, Billy said. How many fairies are we talking about? I squinted up at a particularly violent burst of lightning. All of them. The stone the gatekeeper had given me led us to the waterfront along Burnham Harbor. Billy parked the van on the street outside the wharves of what had been the lifeblood of the city, and that still received an enormous amount of shipping every year. Halogen floodlights every couple hundred feet made the docks and the silent still life behind the grid of chain-link fence. I turned to the office and said, all right, folks, before we go up, I've got to put some ointment on your eyes. It stinks, but it will keep you from being taken in by the most fairy glamours. Me first, Billy said at once. I opened a little jar and smeared the dark ointment under his eyes, little half moons of dark, greasy brown. He checked his eyes in the mirror and said, and I used to stare on the football team. Get your game face on, I said. Billy slipped out of the car and pitched his sweats and t-shirt back in. I got out of the van and opened the side door. Billy and his wolf shape came trotting around the side of the van, sat nearby as I smeared the greasy ointment in the eyes of all the alphas. It was a little unnerving to me anyway. They were all naked as I did, shivering the wolf form as soon as I finished and joining Billy outside. One of the girls, a redhead who had been daintily plump, now looked like something for a men's magazine. She gave me a somewhat satisfied smile as I noticed, and the next, a petite girl, mousy brown hair and a long scar on her shoulder, held her dress against her front, confided, she's been impossible this year, as I smeared ointment on her. Half a dozen young men and another half dozen young women, all told, made for a lot of wolf. They waited patiently as I slapped ointment on Fix, then Meryl, and then finally myself. I used the very last of it and blew out a deep breath. I put on my gun on a hip rig instead of a shoulder holster and hoped that the rain and my duster would conceal it from any passing observation. I drew my pentacle out to lie on my shirt, gathered up my staff and rod, slipping the straps on the doctor's bag, and picked it up. I juggled things around for a moment till I could get the gray stone on its thread into my hand and thought that maybe Elaine had the right idea when it came to going with smaller magical foci. I had just gotten out into the rain when the wolves all looked out in the night at once. One of them, I think Billy, let out a bark, and they scattered, leaving me and Merrill Fix standing there alone in the rain. Well, what? Fix stammered. What happened? Where did they go? Merrill said they must have heard something. She reached back in the minivan and came up with a machete and a wood axe. Then she pulled out a heavy denim jacket that had been festooned in layers of what looked like silverware. It rattled as she put it on. No chainmail, I asked. Fix fussed with a fork that was sticking out too far and said in an apologetic tone, best I could do on short notice. It's steel, though, so you know it would be harder for anything to bite her. He hopped back into the minivan and came out with the bulky toolbox that looked heavy as hell. The little guy lifted it to his shoulder as though he did it all the time and licked his lips. What do we do? I checked the stone, which still pointed at the lake. We moved forward. If there's something out there, Billy will let us know. Fix gulped, his frizzy white hair slowly being plastered to his head by the rain. Are you sure? Stay close to me, Fix, Merrill said. How are we going to go that way, Dresden? There's a fence, harbor security, too. I had no idea, but I didn't want to say that. I headed for the nearest gate and said, instead, come on. We got to the gate and found it open. A broken chain dangled from one edge. Part of the shattered link lay on the ground nearby. The ends had been twisted, not cut. Steam curled from the hissing cloud where raindrops touched. Broken, I said not long ago. This rain would cool the metal down fast. Not by ferry either, Merrill said quietly. They don't like to come close to a fence like this. Silly. Fix sniffed. A good cheap set of bolt cutters would have been better than just breaking a perfectly good chain. Yeah, nasties can be irrational that way, I said. The stone continued to lean out toward one end of the long wharves thrusting into the lake. Out that way. We went through the gate and had gone maybe 20 feet before the halogen floodlights went out, leaving us in a storm-drenched blackness. I fumbled for my amulet with cold fingers, but Fix and Merrill both beat me to it. Fix's toolbox thunk down, and a moment later he stood up with a heavy-duty flashlight. At almost the same time, there was a crackle of plastic, and Merrill shook the tube of a chemical light into eerie green luminescence. A gunshot barked sharp and loud, and Merrill jerked and staggered to one side. She looked down at blood spurting over her jeans, her expression one of startled shock. Down, I said, and hit her at the waist, bearing her to the ground as the gun barked again. I grabbed the glow stick and shoved it in my coat. Put out those lights. Fix fumbled with the flashlight as another shot rang out, sending a sputter of sparks from his toolbox. Fix yelped and dropped the light. It rolled over to one side, slewing a cone of illumination out behind us. The light spilled over the form of the tigress, the ghoul assassin, not even bothering to try human shape now. In her natural form, she was a hunched-shouldered, gray-skinned fiend, something blending the worst features of mankind, hyena and baboon. Short, wiry red hairs prickled over her whole body. Her legs were stunned and strong, her arms too long, and her hands tipped in spurs of bone that replaced nails. Her hair hung about her head in soggy, matted lump, and her eyes, furious as she came running forward, glared with malice. Pink and gray scars stood out against her skin, swollen areas where she had healed all the damage Murphy had inflicted on her the night before. She flew toward us over the ground, running with all four limbs, mouth gaping wide. She didn't see the alphas closing in behind her. The first wolf, black grease still in half circles under its eyes, hit her right leg, a quick snapping, jerking motion as its jaws. The ghoul shrieked in surprise and fell tumbling. She regained her feet quickly and struck out at the wolf who had bloodied her. But the big gray beast rolled aside as a taller, tawnier wolf leapt over him. The second wolf took the ghoul's other leg, bounding away when the ghoul turned on it, while the third wolf darted into the tiger's back. Darted in at the tigress's back. Blech, no. The ghoul screamed and tried to run again. The wolves didn't let her. I watched as another wolf slammed into her, knocking her down. She rolled to her front, but she had been hamstrung, and her legs were not useless weight. Claws flashed out and drew flecks of blood, but the wolf she hit scrambled onto her back. Jaws closing on the back of the ghoul's neck. She let out a last frantic, gurgling scream. Then the werewolves buried her in a tide of fur and flashing fangs. When they drew away half a minute later, I couldn't have recognized the remains for what they were. My stomach curled up on itself, and I forced myself to look away before I started throwing up. I grabbed Merrill underneath her arms and started tugging her toward the nearest warehouse. I snarled, "Help me!" at Fix, and was pitched in surprisingly strong. "Oh, God," Fix went, "Oh, God, Merrill, oh, God, it's not bad," Merrill panted as we dragged her around the corner of the building. "It's too bad, Fix." I got out the glow stick and checked. Her jeans were stained with blood, black in the green light, but not as badly as they should have been. I found a long tear along the fabric of one leg and whistled. "Lucky," I said. "Grace, she doesn't look like it's bleeding too bad." I poked her leg. "Can you feel that?" She winced. "Good." I said. "Stay here, Fix. Stay with her." I left my bag there and unlimbered my gun. I kept it pointed at the ground and made sure my shield bracelet was ready to go, gathering energy into it in order to shield myself from any more rifle shots. I didn't raise the gun to the level. I didn't want it to go off accidentally and bounce a bullet off my own shield and into my head. As I stepped around the corner, I heard a short scream and a series of sharp barks. One of the wolves appeared in the cone of faces fallen light, peeked up in his mouth and tried to me. All clear? I asked. The wolf ducked his head in a couple of quick nods and dropped the flashlight on my foot. I picked it up. The wolf barked again and started off toward the wharf. I frowned at him and said, "You want me to follow you?" He rolled his eyes and nodded again. I started off after him. If it turns out that Timmy's stuck down the well, I'm going home. The wolf led me to the wharf the stone had pointed to, and there I found a young man in dark slacks and a white jacket on the ground in a circle of wolves. He held one bleeding hand against his belly and was panting. A rifle laid on the ground nearby next to a broken pair of sunglasses. He looked up at me and grimaced, his face pale behind his goatee. "Ace," I said, and shook my head. "You were the one who hired the ghoul." "I don't know what you're talking about," he lied. "Get these things away from me, Dresden. Let me go. I'm running late, Ace, or I would have the patience for more chit-chat." I nodded the nearest wolf and said, "Tear his nose off." Ace screamed and fell back, covering his face with both arms. I winked at the wolf and stepped forward to stand over the changeling. "Or maybe his ears or toes. What do you think, Ace? What's going to make you talk the fastest, or should I just try them all at one time?" "Try them all one at a time." "Go to hell," Ace gasped. "You can do whatever you want, but I'm not talking. Go to hell, Dresden." Footsteps came up behind us. Meryl limped close enough to see Ace and then stood there for a minute staring at him. Fix followed her staring. "Ace," Fix said, You shot Meryl?" The bearded changeling swallowed and lowered his arms, looking at Meryl and Fix. "I'm sorry, Meryl. It was an accident. I wasn't aiming at you." The green-haired changeling stared at Ace and said, "You were trying to kill Dresden, the only one besides Ron who has ever taken a step out of his way to help us, the only one who can help Lily." "I didn't want to, but that was their price." "Whose price?" Meryl asked in a monotone. Ace licked his lips, eyes flicked around nervously. "I can't tell you, they'll kill me." Meryl stepped forward and kicked him in the belly, hard. Ace doubled over and threw up, gasping and twitching and sobbing. He couldn't get enough breath to cry out. "Whose price?" Meryl asked again when Ace didn't speak. She shifted her weight as though to repeat the kick, and he cried out, "Wait!" She whimpered, "Wait! I'm done waiting," Meryl said. "God, I'll tell you, Meryl. It was the vampires, the Reds. I was trying to get protection from Slate, from that bitch Maid. They said if I got rid of the wizard, they'd fix it." "Bastards," I muttered. "So you hired the tigers." "I didn't have a choice," Ace whined. "If I hadn't done it, they'd have taken this themselves." "You had a choice, Ace," Fix said quietly. I shook my head. "How did you know we'd be coming here?" "The Reds," Ace said. "They told me where you'd show up. They didn't say you'd be alone." "They didn't say you wouldn't be alone. Meryl, please, I'm sorry." She faced him with that expression. "Shut up, Ace." "Look," he said, "look, let's get out of here, all right? The three of us, we can get clear of this. We need to before we can't help it anymore." "I don't know what you're talking about," Meryl said. "You do," Ace said, leaning up toward Meryl, his eyes intent. "You feel it. You hear her calling us. You feel it just like I do. The Queen calls us, all of winter's blood." "She calls," Meryl said, "but I'm not answering." "If you don't want to run, then we should think about what we're going to do. After this battle is over, Maeve and Slade are going to come for us again. But if we declare our loyalty, if we choose—" Meryl kicked Ace in the stomach again. "You worthless trash. All you ever think of is yourself. Get out of my sight before I kill you." Ace gagged and tried to protest, but Meryl snarled, "Now!" The force of the word made Ace flinch away, and he turned it to a scramble before rousing the run. The wolves all looked at me, but I shook my head, letting him go. Meryl shrugged her shoulders and lifted her face to the rain. "You okay?" Fix asked her. "I have to be," she said. Maybe it's just me, but her voice sounded a little lower, rougher, trollier. "Let's move, wizard." "Yeah," I said, yeah. I lifted the gatekeeper's stone and followed it down the wharf to the last pier, and then down to the end of the last pier, empty of any ships or boats. A dozen wolves and 2 changelings followed me. Nothing but the cold waters of Lake Michigan and a rolling thunderstorm surrounded me at the end of the pier, and the stone twitched, swinging almost to the horizontal on its path ran. "No kidding," I muttered. "I know it's up." I reached out a hand and felt something, a tingle of energy dancing and swirling in front of me. I reached a bit further and it became more tangible, solid. I drew up a little my will and sent it out toward that force, a gentle surge of energy. Brilliant light flickering through the opalescent shades rose up in front of me, as bright as the full moon, as solid as ice. The light resolved itself into the starry outline of stairs that began at the end of the pier and climbed into the storm above. I stepped forward and put one foot on the lowest step. It bore my weight, leaving me to stand on a block of translucent moonlight over the wind-tossed waters of Lake Michigan. "Wow," Fix breathed. "Can you go up that?" Meryl asked. "Oof," said Billy the werewolf. "While we're young," I said, and took the next step. "Come on." And that will bring us to chapter 30. And that will leave us 5 chapters. So I think that will be a good ending for that today, because I think my voice is getting out, unfortunately. And it is very damp. I don't want to hurt my eyes anymore, but I can help. Uh, but we're going to leave you at that little um, cliffhanger, as it were. You know, I'm bad about that. I'm leaving people at cliffhangers. It's like, oh, where do we go from here? But that ends Storytime with Cyn for this week. I do not know when the next installment would be, because I don't know. I don't have my schedule for next week. But the next Wednesday, I am free. I am off, and I feel good. We will be do this again. Um, as for what I will do after this for the stream, I will see. But I am going to take a quick VRV and take the river out and all that good stuff. So that way, that's taken care of. Maybe get something a little more to drink. um, but it will be something calm and cozy. It's not going to be anything loud. Um, I just want to make sure that was what that was. But anyway, I'm going to take a pause for the cause. I hope you enjoyed the story time for this week. We do this every Wednesday. That I'm off anyway. I just didn't want to push it. I could have very well ended today, but that might have been a whole another hour. And my voice is already starting to give out. So so I thought it best to rest and let it and leave you on a quick little bit of a cliffhanger. So yeah, words are hard. But anyway, I will be back in 2 and 2, and we will decide what we're going to do from there. Enjoy these clips, or enjoy the break anyway.
song called Hold Me, Help Me that I wrote about some really dark times in my life that I think a lot of people can relate to, and I hope that it helps some of you. So go and check that out. The music video is going to be coming very soon in the early new year. Last but not least, if you haven't checked out a live stream yet, we are live on Twitch Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, and Fridays 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. See you guys next time. Good night.
And I'd give up forever to touch you, 'cause I know that you feel me somehow. You're the closest to heaven that I'll ever
Okay, I am back. Sorry about that. It took me a little bit. Actually, I did not take her out. I actually went and cuddled with her for a few minutes instead because I don't know. She was on the couch and she was cute, and I was like, not the couch, but the throne room. And she was being very cute. I think I'm going to run Supermarket Sim for a little bit, and then I'm going to probably call it. I'm not going to go very long tonight because, as you can probably hear, my voice is not exactly great right now. But I'm gonna lie that anyway. I know it's something I usually throw up there whenever I'm doing this kind of thing. But I will be honest, I'll be honest with you. When it comes to streams, it's been tough because I never stop. I know you being needy over there. I said stop, you know. Needles is being needy. I know why he's begging. It's because River's bowl of water is not as full as it should be for his liking. And so, therefore, he is trying to get my attention. And that will in its own time. One of those. Enjoy. Yes. Heaven forbid we have anything for us. I was getting a text from work and they're like, pick up the bonanzas for, bonanzas. And I thought, oh, for your guests. Heaven forbid we get rewarded in any shape, form, or fashion. In fact, even the freaking chocolate covered peanuts that a guest gave us got confiscated. Pissed me off, too. But with this game, I can actually just kind of chill and talk to you guys for a little bit, and not a whole lot of action involved, because still kind of chill. I honestly don't know if we're going to raid out or not tonight. It all depends on if we got anybody, lined up for something like that. But I'll be honest with you guys, since I started this new job, it's been really hard for me to concentrate on streaming, on other stuff, and I'm trying to fight against that. I'm trying to figure out how I can get it all into my life and stuff. Just a friendly reminder, in our Discord, around 6, we will be showing AEW Dynamite. Oh, I already got it on my order. This is what I usually do. I basically just stand around and wait for the online orders to pop. And I do that and then just kind of chill otherwise, and also be shopping around the head in my face with a ball bat. Really, dude? Really? You couldn't have just walked down here to get this? Really? You gotta be bougie? Okay, I see how it is. Silly bitch. No, what's this? Yeah, I can do that. Never hurts to get more stock. That's the little trick about things. Damn. So here comes the sun. It's alright. But since I streamed this last, I have built a lot, as you can tell. And it's growing ever bigger. I had a massive glitch. Well, because they're right, my baby. That was the biggest sneezing. I had a massive glitch that fucked me up because it made it seem like I had a DLC for free that wasn't supposed to be free, and it screwed up everything. And they gave us like $10,000 to reboot. And unfortunately, I had just restarted my game and that happened because, well, I had no choice. Again, why? But basically, I built all this up over time. I still don't have both my helpers yet. I need to hire another mom and another stock dude. Hadn't needed it so far though. Well, keep me jumping, huh? I was becoming a jungle run, but you shine can't be seen. Baby, I can't feel peaceful away from you. A stranger now. Never chose faces in my never gets like on your brain. Can't be seen. Hey, buddy. Alrighty. Never chose love. Never said Ah, I see, I see. Well, I had a little over 2 hours of reading a little while ago. Took a little bit of a break, playing this for a little bit, and then we're going to probably find a raid target. I'm getting readjusted here. Not going to run long because I'm trying not to have a headache. And I think it's because of the wacky weather that's going on. It's finally brightening back up out there. It didn't do anything. And apparently George didn't have anybody off. At least I didn't see anybody. And of course, Anubis is being needy. So, you know, typical stream day. And what way to be young? I saw that. Ow. Yes, I do. I mean, stream target. Now, I figure eventually my favorite target will be on too. Oh, you slipped and fell. How bad did you suck? We had Wolf come out earlier. He had been to the dentist and he had a feeling fall out and had to get fixed. So hopefully he's doing a lot better. I heard word from Twister earlier. He's feeling some better. It's on like Donkey Kong. Gotcha, bitch. Gotcha, bitch. Don't do that again. Don't ever do that again. I'll chase your ass down. Don't you ever do that shit again. Don't you ever do that shit again. You're not gonna steal from me, asshole. When does it stop becoming security and becomes actual just violence? It gives me something to do. I'm taking to doing that lately. And there's absolutely no achievement, no nothing for it. It's just because it's just fun. And I tell you what, they don't come back. Just saying. They don't come back. They don't come back. Then I saw George. Then I saw that. I was like, "Yep, George done lit somebody up. We gotta go. It's go time." That's my guard, George. George is awesome. Love seems to be anything the others. Why do you let your friend? I've looked around enough to know that you're the one I'm gonna say to me. Box just wishes and dreams are in control. The box would be empty except for the name they were in the same room. There never seems to be any time to do things who want to do what you're feeling. I looked around enough to know you won't know when the ghost will return. I love that song. By the way, my 3-string streak. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. You and Diadems both had. I think you and Diadems both had one today, which are really cool. Thank you. Appreciate you. Had something else cool happen today too, but I'll tell you about that off stream. Let's just say I got a little bit of help from an unknown quarter. Nikki, for God's sakes, put some pants on. I mean, dang it. Think of the children. Could you be a dear and actually snooze that, or can you're on mobile? Because if you can't, I'll take care of it just a sec. I did. I got it. To come we'll try to stay on to open to some ancient still When you come down, when you come down, you've got something in my yeah. To stay to the outside. When you stay around, when you come up to mine, when you come up to mine, when you come up to when you come up down. It's all alone. The bell's twinkling like a gun. So it's all about to release pressure for the same strength of love. Push. We can hear it from we can hear it. Take me tonight. We know what you got to see. Take me tonight. This love is not a song. Be my little baby. Oh, oh. I'm not saying that. You better fill that damn phone paper up, goddammit. I'm gonna feel come myself. You can feel it go. You can find myself. Don't take me down. But I'm not you got to see me. Take me down. The soul is new person. Baby, you just love yourself. It's all just like Rose. You never better. But what's on me? Oh. It's a hard world. Okay. Used to, I could do that and then do that. Check in something real quick. Just see. Ah, I see you. I see who you're referring to. Actually, we've got a few raid targets actually. The Naaman's still on. I don't know how much longer they'll be on them. It looks like YouTube's actually keeping up for once. I'm shocked. Okay. I'm gonna finish this up and I'm probably gonna raid out somebody here in the next little bit. I really wish you could find a way different color scheme for this because it makes it hard to see. You are my answer. I'm safe again. Cause you try to start again. I want to be words of choice. This inside of me. I'm not confused. Touch my phone. Why did you treat me like else to me? Say I don't. I'm not so can I'm tired of the time. You touch my time. You any time for me. I have no secret. I don't want to be the one who melts all my shoes. Cause inside I realize I'm not confused. Don't try to find me. I just try. Real second, say I don't need you. I wake up, sweat, I'm why did you cloud shining on me? I'm I got this way, never be alright. So I'm breathing that when I'm breathing that I can't lie. I'm to life.
Hey everyone, I forgot to film an outro, so here is an outro from me in my pajamas. We are slowly chipping away at our Linkin Park tribute album, so check out the link below to pre-save it, and then also leave a comment letting us know what Linkin Park song we should do next. you didn't know, we released a new original song called Hold Me, Help Me that I wrote about some really dark times in my life that I think a lot of people can relate to, and I hope that it helps some of you. So go and check that out. The music video is going to be coming very soon in the early new year. Last but not least, if you haven't checked out a live stream yet, we are live on Twitch Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, and Fridays 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. See you guys next time. Good night.
That's good. All right. Okay, we're just gonna do one day of this today. Yeah, Schmers. I think given the fact that I know that Naman will probably log off at some point soon, because usually I don't know though, he actually got on kind of late for him today. Well, I hate to end so early, but my energy is like it's like going up. By the way, just fair warning, I actually made my smoothie today, so I have not tried it yet. I actually tasted it; it tastes pretty decent. I followed the recipe that I put together up to a point, and then it's like, I need more of this. For some reason, it was not wet enough, so I ended up having to add more. Had to add a little more coconut milk. Had to add a little bit more. But I had the things. Okay, so hopefully it turned out real well. It's actually been chilling in the refrigerator because I didn't want to just drink it. Just bam. I ended up using all the kiwi because I ended up putting 4 kiwis, and the other 4 were not good, unfortunately. I think I weighed it when they sent them to me Saturday. They were like that really weird spot where they're not quite right enough to use. And then I waited a few days, and they got 2. Some of them got 2 right. So unfortunately, it was just a one shot for the kiwi. But I still have plenty of strawberries. Still have plenty of yogurt. Still have plenty of the coconut milk. Still have plenty of the greens. So I can do it again. I just have to remember now more liquid. I'll probably get my second win at some point this afternoon. But I figured I'd go ahead and knock off early and get meal prep done, get things cleaned up, take some time to do some stuff today, so that way it's done. I did get the pork done yesterday, so I've got pork and chicken already cooked in the fridge. I'm going to make a pot of pasta tonight. Going to use some more of that spinach. I have a shit ton of kale, so I'm kind of hoping that Thorn might come back by for a visit before it goes bad, so I can actually give him a bag of it up here to use this. I'm getting more of a feel for things. So slowly but surely, I'm working things in and getting things done and trying to get things done. It's not the blissful, oh my God, I have extra money to go do shit that I thought it'd be, but it's a struggle. But I'm doing okay. You were just bound determined to do a fucking hand, ain't you? All right then. Let's see how long nothing's been going. I am thinking that we may rate out to pilot, since I know the pilot will be on for a while. So as much as I love Norman, but I know how he is. He's like me. He gauges by his energy, and then he goes, maybe. But anyway, for those of you on the U of Tubes, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for hanging out. Hope you're enjoying the rest of your day. As the Unexpected Gypsy says, keep your light shining and keep positivity in the world as best you can. We're all in this together. So And I don't know when next stream will be. I don't know. When I know, you guys will know. So there's sometime next week. That's all I know because I know that I have to work Friday and Saturday, unfortunately. And I've never had enough energy to do a nighttime stream after work. I'm sorry. It just no, it's never there. But anyway, guys, for those of you on the YouTubes, y'all take it easy, and I will catch y'all on the next one. See you later. Bye.